Okay.
Okay. 6:30 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Where there's a quorum of council present at the time at 6:30 p.m. be it resolved that this regular meeting be open for business, and that the minutes of the regular meeting of January 11th, 2023 be approved. Now, mover, Edie, second. Harold, all in favor? Carried. We begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are on land that has been established by economic nations. We'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Sables-Spanish, and we would like to give thanks for sharing this land. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And being heard, we have delegations. Sandy, do you want to come up and?
About the maps and the private deed of the farm stuff.
Okay.
We got now we'll put in 19.
Yeah.
I got
Sits there.
Just I. See the roads and the highway there.
Can I see what they look at them?
What's that? Oh, GH, no, we have that.
So any questions for Sandy?
Well, I was just wondering if your lawyer did like a title search? You know, a title search at the land titles office, you know, where they look at transfers, pull out old surveys, that sort of thing?
There is a surveyor marked back in the bush there.
Yeah.
But see, Sandy, the problem is, we don't have any records showing any evidence that there was ever a road there. And so.
It's on the deed there, there was a road there. Okay, highway, that's the way it needs to go before it. In that road and come over to Leslie, and that road with Leslie needs to go to the township, out to the highway. That's one road that was way back then. And the road was down farther by Tim Ruby place there. There's a road there that went to the highway there. That's the only two roads that went to the highway. On the, before the river road was there.
Okay, but like I said, we have nothing on file at the office here that says there was a road there. So what we're recommending to you is that you get a lawyer to figure out whether the road you're speaking of is actually a municipal road, because,
Well, there's a highway before.
well, like I said, we've got no historical data on file at the office to say that it was a road. And in order for that to change, you have to prove that there was maintenance conducted on it and that it was a municipal road under the municipal act. And if you don't want to go to a lawyer, you can always try to get consent.
The ditches on the road is still there yet. On each side of the road, the ditches is still right through.
But I mean, that could have been a private road, you know?
Well, it wouldn't be on the deed, highway. Need to bring the deed? No, it's
Just the copy.
This is a copy of the, yeah, that's a copy of the highway.
Is that the one Sandy comes out at Southern TV?
Yep. The street cross. Moss needs to own the farm back there before.
Whenever title search would be.
Well, that's, a title, it should come up on the title search.
That's what
Yeah.
Mary Ann was
Yeah.
suggesting. You'll have to get a lawyer and do a title search to determine.
It's on the deed.
That'll come up then. To say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can bring the deed.
well, it doesn't matter. There's nothing in their records. And in order for that to be valid, we'd have to have a title search by a lawyer.
The lawyer could bring us a document saying that this is a valid piece of land, it's been a road, here is the information on it, because we don't have the information.
Sorry. I mean,
It's, if it was a road, it should come up.
Yeah, well, it's on the old maps too. They show on the old maps there, and there's road.
But yeah,
All the other road too.
see, that'll go right back to,
Yeah, they'll have copies of
bring
any
it
surveys that were done, at land titles.
There's a surveyor back on the road, halfway back, back to the farm. There's a surveyor there with a seal pole and yellow thing around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then there would be, if the property was surveyed, there would be a survey registered
Yeah.
at the land titles office. So when they do the title search, the clerk will go and they'll pull out that survey and the description. And it'll say who were the original owners, how many times changed hands,
Moss was.
and it'll give a description. It'll give a clear description. So, because we don't have a copy of that survey
No,
here.
and it was probably a road way before this was ever a township. You know what I mean? And so, in order for us to respect this and recognize it as a road, we have to have some information. So the onus will be on you to get a lawyer to do a title search. If not, your only other option is gonna be to get consent and have some kind of easement from the neighbor.
I think on the deed it's 66 feet wide, that road.
They should be able to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's standard, your standard wording,
Yeah.
that's the allowance
Yeah,
for
what
what
allowances are,
doesn't
yeah.
necessarily mean it was, but that's.
It's on the deed.
Yeah.
Like,
And if it's been surveyed off, it's gonna come up. If it hasn't been, well.
what if it's unopened road allowance? They were 66 feet.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
think that's what it's referring
It's
to
a
in the deed.
public
Yeah.
road too.
Every property has that percentage
But that's
of possible road.
possible allowance, and then it was given back to the municipality, what I found out.
Yours.
It was for future, like back in the day, 100 years ago or whatever, they made all the lots. And if they sold it, that allowance was there, but it didn't necessarily, it was never opened, right? It was opened if you needed it. This may be that, I'm just saying, this may be that kind of property.
And that's why he really should get legal
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not for us to give it away, but
No. So you're gonna have to get some legal advice about this, Sandy, to confirm whether or not it was indeed a road. And if it was, and there was surveys and it was on record, then it'll come up. If it doesn't, then you also have another option to use consent and through the neighbor's lots to access that property.
Rocco, he's on all the land there, from the river right through. His dad had a camp there where, Russ was there. Rocco grandfather had his house there. The whole strip was belonged to Coles. Long time ago. Yeah. We had to do the work on the road there all the time.
Well, for now, that's the advice we have for you, Sandy. Talk to a lawyer, get him to do a title search, and if it's there, then you can, you can get it done for you. Okay?
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Okay. You can get that.
Okay, thanks.
Well, you can jump to that if you want to. You can jump to that, or do you want to do a regular agenda? Well, we just go through right now, and we've got something else to get through. Because it was always staying with all the schools, which is nice. Yeah. Did you need it?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no consent, nothing on consent agenda.
Moving on committee member appointments, be it resolved that the following committee appointments be made. Parks and Recreation Committee, Alex Yaw, Alana Hobbs. Economic Development and Community Services, John Mooney and Tom Krabs. Could have a mover for that. Edie, second. Kaz, all in favor? Carried. Also, be it resolved that the following be appointed to the library board. Ursula Robinson and Sue Christensen. Could I have a mover? Marianne, second. Harold, all in favor? Carried.
That's great.
Yeah, so just, our committees are full, we've filled all the vacancies.
Okay, so Phonem Conference in Perry Sound, May the 8th to the 10th. Any takers?
Do we know what's on?
Well, there
Like-
wasn't much of an
Yeah,
agenda there. on
yeah.
the-
Yeah, they just kind of highlighted some of the topics, but they don't have anything, because it's early bird registrations
Yeah.
before April 7th, so.
I can't commit to it, not this.
We're just coming back from trouble.
Yeah, we're doing strong.
I mean, I wouldn't mind going like to like a 1 day there and back, depending on whether or not there's something,
Well, yeah, it was pretty,
You
it
know.
was pretty vague.
yeah, that's the thing.
And again, this is early bird, so we can, we can keep that open.
Yeah,
Yeah, till April 7th, right, to turn the early bird rate, so.
it's just like, yeah, which shows what they, it just is,
I
trade
have to
show
go
until
to the-
it's on Monday.
to
The trade show, so probably Tuesday is all the sessions and workshops on the
That's what,
Tuesday.
that's what it
And
was.
then the Wednesday is, if you're not a member, then there's the business meeting on Wednesday, so it looks like really the middle day is it. But yeah, we can,
We'll defer it.
yeah, sure.
Because I find sometimes they have more relevant topics for us than cable.
Yeah,
Sometimes, it depends, right? So,
well, it's more for Northern Ontario, a little bit
Yeah.
more small town.
Yeah.
Whereas Amo, well, you
Yeah.
got the big boys there as
Yeah.
well, so we'll defer that, look it over, we'll see if we get some more information. So next up is the Amo conference. Same situation, I'm not prepared to go to that this year, and apparently there isn't a hotel room left in London. So, but any takers, if you've got company, or if you've got relatives around there or whatever, you know, think about it. Middle of summer too. So, yeah, well, or we can defer it. What's the deadline on that?
Early bird was March 3rd.
Okay. Okay, Finance Committee report.
Do you have questions or comments, or was there something that was noted that's not?
Anything for the Finance Committee report?
Not right at the moment.
Okay. So be it resolved that the Finance Committee report January 23rd, 2023 be accepted as presented. Is that the mover? Harold, second. Mike, all in favor?
That was a very good meeting.
What? Excellent. I think we're gonna have a lot of stuff. Okay, coming from the Finance Committee meeting, be it resolved that the treasurer be authorized to transfer funds at the beginning of each calendar year for the library in an amount equal to 50% of the previous year's municipal contribution. Down the mover. Edie, second. Mary Ann, all in favor? Carried.
On the finance website even, and it doesn't
Yeah.
even give any more information. Kind of vague to try to get you to do that.
Oh,
On the, like even on their website,
yes, it's,
it's like, maybe we'll do something.
well, it's.
They talk about lunch.
I guess
More
if
than
you
they
wanna
do.
jump on the bandwagon, you can say I'll go.
Yeah.
And
We're all-
probably, yeah,
It's our first year, we're all pretty
Yeah.
busy and it's like,
Yeah.
not too worried about it.
I'm not sure, I'll check my phone and see if Blair was supposed to be here for the level of service, but we can continue on a few other things.
Okay. Be it resolved that the following be appointed as volunteer firefighters at Station 5, subject to the usual terms and conditions. Doug Gates, Gabe Fox, and Talia Robin.
He's
Could I have a motion? Sure. Mary Ann, second. All in favor?
Yeah, if you want to, Blair's just coming in if you want to.
there it goes.
Okay, hi, Blair.
Or if you want to do the purple. Yeah, sure.
So, McClosh Foothills Municipal Association met last week. Very interesting meeting. Lots of good things that come from that. DSAB was there as well. A lot of plans for enhanced response to homelessness, and addiction, mental health issues. And I would actually like to, there's a phone list of numbers that people in crisis walking into a place and say, listen, help. You know, the mayor of Espanola actually mentioned people coming into Tim Hortons there. But, so I would like to get that list, and I'd like to have it here at the township office. I'd like to have it in our libraries, and possibly, you know, maybe a merchant, Corey's confectionery or Burke's Shell.
Yeah.
Just so
That'd be
that
great.
somebody walks in, I need help here, you know, people aren't scrambling, wondering what we can do to help this person, because there's been issues the last few years, and there will continue to be issues.
There was a poster, I don't know if it was them that put it together, it's in the mall. And the header of it is, are you homeless or couch surfing? Call us now.
Yeah.
And it was a phone number. And it sounded like it's immediate hope, so I wonder if we could get print from them, like if, I think it was DSAP that put, it was their
Yeah.
poster, or,
Yeah,
but
like,
it was a good poster, and it had the phone number, and it was very, it seemed like it was very quick service.
they'll send a taxi.
Yeah.
You know, so. Also, we talked about, DSAB's buildings in our communities, and they're gonna slowly, start flipping tenancy back to seniors, if possible. Like a lot of those buildings, because there was a lack of senior tenancy, like McMillan Place in Webber,
Right.
for example. They went to, you know, regular tenancy, and I mean, that has been successful at some point, but quite unsuccessful at others. But the goal is to flip it back to seniors if, you know, if the demand is there, so.
Yeah, so that's, I think that's great, the senior may be looked at.
And also, we're working on this community safety and well-being. And they want input, and they also want people to spread the word, and so I'm thinking Webwood Seniors, Massey Seniors, Walford Community Club, so we're gonna get information out to those people.
Yeah, because there is a seniors club meeting
Yes,
every Monday.
I see that
Yeah.
in Webwood, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. So, there's a lot of good things in the works there. There's gonna be a bike exchange and a rodeo planned. That's also gonna include mental health and welfare booths and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, a lot of this work is going on with the Espanola Family Health Team. They want to work with us and with our clinic. We also have a spot in Wentwood at McMillan Place that's supposed to be health related.
Whether it's used or not,
Well, whether it's used or
to
not,
its, or whether it's used to its capacity.
yeah, that's
Like,
the thing, and it's a bit of a territorial thing between the Espanola Family Health Team and our clinic.
Yeah.
And we gotta get over that hump.
Yeah.
But good, a lot of plans, and it's good to see the municipalities working together. I think we gotta do a lot more of that. And any comments on that?
So the February 8th council meeting, I've invited Jen LeGrandier, who's the coordinator for the community safety and wellbeing.
Yes.
She's gonna come and address council, and she'll give you an idea of what she's all about and what programs and what assistance they can give to our clinic and our community. So she's on the agenda for them.
And I did ask Jen if she got a lot of feedback on the whole senior medical transportation bus service, and she got a lot of feedback. So, I mean, a lot of us threw it back online and said, listen, you can't just comment. You have to call this lady and confirm. But she said, there's a lot of feedback, so that actually might fly. Espanola to start and then Southern. So, there's grant applications in, we'll see where it goes. We didn't get any feedback from our economic development officer. She wasn't at the meeting, so. But I think we're supposed to get, she's supposed to.
So, yeah, so I just met with her this week. She's going to come to the first ECDev meeting, and I'd like to invite all of council to come to hear, rather than her come to a council meeting and then leave out the ECDev members, if she comes to that. And then, so that meeting in February, she'll come and give an idea of what she's all about and what she's worked on, and get ideas for what plan that we want to work with the region.
And she's associated with who?
She is the Gloucester Foothills Association partnered to get a regional economic development officer. So she's working with Espanola, ourselves, Baldwin, and Narren. So regional projects. She will help each municipality individually with projects, but part of the goal is to have things that, because economic development, and I'm stealing Alan Hewitt's phrase, has no borders. Right, economic development, it covers every year. So anything that benefits us benefits them. So if we work together, and she can help us achieve that.
Any other questions on that, folks? Okay. So moving on, fire department level of service. Larry, do you want to come up and discuss that? Sure.
Did the link work from the report? Yeah.
It worked for me. I don't know if anybody else.
I checked it before, that's for me too. So what purpose of putting that in my report this month was to just to modernize and kind of review our level of service for the community. Because there's some new wording as a result of the changes of the Fire Prevention Protection Act that was changed in July of this year. So I wanted to kind of bring our attention to it and give you as much information as we can, because ultimately you folks decide what level of service you want us to give the community, and that's the basis of training. It's the basis of pretty much everything we run. Once we know what level of service we provide to the community, and that kind of sets our guidelines. where we train from there. So that's why that's important to review this and kind of, a decision doesn't have to be made today, but it's something to certainly sit on and figure out where we're gonna land as far as level of service for the community. Currently, our level of service is exterior only with limited interior firefighting. So what that means is that we're not a full rescue trained fire department. So that's something that may not be, people have the understanding that when the fire department shows up, there's somebody that's trapped inside, that we're just gonna go in there, that we're all fully trained, we're ready to go, it doesn't matter. We're gonna go in and rescue that person. We train to that level, but we don't have that level of service in our bylaw. So, and that's kind of something that it maybe isn't completely understood by the public, but if we were to step out of that, then, and somebody was injured, we'd be in big trouble. And me, and then it would kind of roll uphill. Yeah. So we have to, yeah, I know, some things roll uphill, some things roll down, and some things roll all over the place. But that's one of the, why it's so important to set the bylaw, is to, understand what we can do, and that we can't step outside of that. So that's where we're at right now. The limited interior means that we can go inside a house to, if there's a kitchen fire, or if there's a room and contents fire, or to locate a fire. But to have a fully involved or an involved house with a rescue, that's outside of our current level of service. So, but we do, I just wanted you to know that we do train to that level of rescue. We do the training, but our level of service doesn't allow us to do it. So, having said that, looking at, I think it's page 2 of the firefighter certification amendments. There's a table, table number 1. Yeah, and that's so that's the new wording. And it kind of sets out, it really doesn't allow us to have the limited interior anymore. We don't see that. No. So that, and there's a reason. There's a reason for that, was because I think what was happening was, we were being trained to a certain level we were trained to be able to do those rescues, and not just we, but I mean provincially with volunteer fire departments. Right. And even though they were interior or exterior only fire departments, they were making interior attacks all the time. And so I think what was happening was people were getting injured, or, and they have lawsuits, and WSIB gets involved, and then they start realizing, okay guys, you're stepping outside of what you're allowed to do. And so I think what the ministry had seen this in a bigger scale, because you have to remember, almost 80%, if not more than 80% of firefighters in Ontario are volunteers. And a lot of them are like us. We're a small municipal, well, we're not small, but they're municipal departments, 10, 15 people. And so that they may not get a lot of fires. And then when they do get one and they have to maybe make a rescue, they go in, and then your training is supposed to be up to that level. We're supposed to have that level of service. And difficult scenario, and we've talked about it at our hall. You have to make those difficult choices. We actually had to make those difficult choices here a couple of years ago. And it's not easy, but ultimately that's where we're at, right? So the exterior fire attacks, I think where we would land, it would make sense for us, would be number 2, firefighter exterior attack and auto extrication.
Because you do auto extrication.
Because we do highway calls, yeah. We don't do hazardous material response. The only place that does hazardous material response, there's 2 of them, one in North Bay, one in the Sioux, and I think Sudbury as well, but they do just for Valley. So I think that's where we land. I think that's where we land. That's my recommendation. Unless you want us to increase the level of training and you want us to give that extra service, it's entirely up to you guys. But that's where we are now. That's what we meet where we are now
Okay.
Yeah, is number 2. There's a lot of, with interior attack and rescue, I mean, we're still gonna train to that level. And we're not gonna certify at that level, but we're gonna train to that level anyway. Whether or not you have the bylaw as just being exterior, we're gonna train to do those interior things anyway. Because it's important, it's an important skill for us. It helps us train in other areas. So we're gonna continue to train to that level as far as internally, but certification wise, we would get certified. So yeah, so that kind of that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it today. If anybody has any questions about it.
Well, I mean, you know what level you're supposed to be at, basically, where you fit in between the lines there.
Yeah, I think that's where we sit now from what the closest to what we.
I understand your desire to train on the interior part of it, but it's like, wouldn't that tempt a fireman to just go the extra step and,
Yeah.
you know, that's.
Yeah, and I agree with you. However, you know.
Sure, maybe he's gonna save a life, but
Yeah.
if it puts us at risk, you know.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. And we've added it into our program because there's certain things in that level of training that are good for us. It gives us extra SCBA training. It's just a lot of the drills that we do are more for confidence for your SCBA and getting us using them more and using hoses and that kind of stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so that there's a lot more. We're not focusing on it as far as saying, hey, we're very upfront with everybody, and all of our senior people and our officers are very well aware of what our limitations are.
Okay, as long as that's loud and clear with.
Yeah, oh yeah.
With the fire.
Yeah, and this is something that's, I mean, I learned this just in February and March, when we started having the discussions about the changes in the legislation that were coming. And I was involved in numerous chiefs meetings from all over the province, and this was a big deal, making sure that our level of service matches what's in the legislation.
So for us to be like in that quadrant 2 that we're in, that's the certification that you're striving for, right? Was that 4 to 7 year thing?
Right.
So the interior stuff, is that like after you worry about that? And right now your focus is just, so that's like for down the road?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. It's built into our training program, but
Okay.
it's later. It's later.
It's way later. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many things we have to do first.
Yeah, because you need to do those other steps, right, to fit that category.
It has to be, you're the professional in this field, and
Yeah.
it's gotta be something that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, we've, even with the new people that we've had, over the course of, since March till now, we've actually been through the firefighter 1 curriculum already. So, you know, the ones that have been attending training have been through the firefighter 1 already. I think we ended it in November, early December was when we finished it up. So that was, so we've been through that already. Now we're just fine tuning it to get ready for certification. We're hoping to have everybody that's on board now certified in firefighter 1 in, I think it's by July. If it works out with the ministry, getting assessors to come here. And so we're starting to work on that now. So it's good. It's going well.
I only bring that up just because I know how much training there already is. So as long, you know, we don't want to add to that. That's after.
Oh yeah.
Right, that's much after.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot.
And is that something then that could be optional training?
We'd like to,
Because
yeah.
it's one of
We'll
those
see.
things where
Yeah.
it's like, we don't need to do it and we can't do it, why do we have to do it? I can just see like some thoughts circling with that.
Yeah.
Like
I
if it
think,
would be an optional training thing.
Yeah, I mean, it builds on so many other skills.
I get that it builds on it.
Yeah, and so that's the importance of it, right? It allows us to be able to just get the confidence in our equipment and confidence in, a lot of the skills are the same as firefighter one, but it's a little bit more advanced. So it's good to have that a little bit more advanced. It keeps people interested. It's fun. The training is a lot of fun.
That's the key.
And that's the, you know,
That's the key,
and that's that.
keeping them engaged.
Keep everybody engaged. And so if we, the firefighter one stuff is actually, it's very basic, as far as skill level. But once you get into firefighter two, it kind of, like I said, it enhances those skills of people, those basic skills that maybe if you're already at a certain level and you think, oh, this is kind of boring. But then, looking forward to training later on, hey, we're going to be doing this. And it just adds that, that level of confidence and building on the skills, keeping people coming to train, keeping them interested. And then the best part is having fun, but then also enhancing their skills. And that's what we want. And it's whether or not we do the interior portions of it, we can modify it to meet what we do now. So that's why I like to keep it mandatory, to be honest. But
Well, like the SCBA part, it's like that can be used outside, inside.
oh yeah, and all different things. And auto extrication.
Yeah, you want to do that.
So just my concern, I'm hearing they're talking with several firefighters who are talking about resigning, if they don't want to commit to it, they can't commit to it. My concern is how many firefighters are going to do this?
Yeah,
Our
so
numbers are kind of at half of what our optimal numbers would be.
yeah, I think we're at about 40, 41, 42 that are regularly showing up. We have some on the roster that we don't see too often, and that's part of the reason why brought this policy into place. What I can say is it's a big change, right? And it's a big change from people that have been here for a long, long time. And I've been going through this for a year with the changing and with the different levels of commitment that people can have. There's a different level of commitment, which is why we were up front since last March with everybody about the level of commitment. We put together a training program to kind of test that out. We tested out many different types of training and try to get people engaged and involved. What we learned was, and kind of finalized it for in the last few meetings and the meeting we were at and the meeting was that it came down to people that wanted to be there and wanted to train, and people that don't want to train and don't want to think that they don't have to train. That's what it came down to. In the end, those are the two main things. Last year we had 114 calls. I think it was 114. 114 calls for service last year. We had no issue with attendance. We had trained people. So losing a few people here and there, even some of the more experienced people, if they can't handle it, we're still in good shape. We have trained people. I'm very confident in that. We have young officers. And because we had so many calls last year, we got to see them in action, and it was pretty impressive actually to see that the training was working, and the training program is working for those that want to commit to it. For those that can't, I completely understand, and that was more. I think in the meeting, the next night was the concern about the commitment level, and but it has to be there. We have to have it, and that's why I'm trying to I've been up front since last year about this, and a lot of people that are still the biggest voices aren't coming, right? I haven't seen them at training in a long time. I haven't seen them at calls in a long time. Calls I don't worry too much about but training is a big one that we have to make sure that we have our sign-offs, prove our training records in the event. We want to have people trained. Because we're volunteer. We only go to calls every couple times a month. So we're going to be expected to be at a level to perform like every fire would show up to a fire, right? And so that's why the training is so important, that we have to maintain that level of commitment and training to be able to respond to the calls that we respond to, because we don't get them all the time. We're not going to 4 or 5 calls a day like they may be in Sudbury, or 2 or 3 house fires a month, and where you want to keep those skills up. And that's the reason why the training's become mandatory. It hasn't been over the years, in certain places. And that's why the government stepped in and said, listen, it's time to tighten up. And because they were seeing injuries, and they were seeing, you know, things happening that were getting reported to Ministry of Labor. They were getting reported as far as occupational health and safety, and those people started to get involved, which I think made this change to put it all, so that everybody in the province is the same. Policing is the same. Policing is the same, whether you have a 6-person police service, or you have a 6,000 person police service, or 8,000 with the OPP. They have to be able to meet the same level of service. So and I'm included in that. I mean, because I'm a chief doesn't mean I don't go and grab a tanker, or if whatever's needed to be done at a scene, I do it. I'm not always the boss. We have other officers that can do that. So I'm subject to this as well. I have to maintain my certification. I have to maintain my sign-offs every year, just to be able to be safe in the workplace, right?
And I think that came up from citizens too, that they were concerned that people missing 4 months of training and then showing up, and citizens were more concerned about that.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, he hasn't been to 1 in 4 months, like, you know.
Being a firefighter's not a casual.
Yeah.
No, and I think the way I've been explaining it to everybody is, it's like you volunteered for this, but now it's a job.
Yeah.
It's becoming more like a job, and I think that's, I mean, writings on the wall, I think that's where the government is going,
And I understand.
whether they get there or not.
Yeah, that's a tough sell for some people.
For some communities,
Mhm.
yeah, it's big for.
It's a hard commitment to make, but I mean, it is what it is. You have to have standards.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it's taken this long, like, coming from the policing background.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had policing standards since the late 90s.
Have you had any volunteers now that said that they're resigning, they won't?
Yeah, we had one for sure resign after the meeting in Massey, and but again, we hadn't seen that person in a while, which was they haven't been to a lot of training sessions. But other than that, we haven't, not that I'm aware of it. So.
Well, and we keep hearing comments, but nobody comes forward to really, you know, we've told them, like, approach council, tell us what you're thinking, tell us what the problems are. We don't get any feedback.
Yeah, and I mean, I think once we start rolling with the new process, we'll start to see, I mean, people have been coming, which is good. It's awesome. It's been only a couple weeks since our launch in last week, or 2 weeks ago. But we're getting some good attendance. But it's going to be the follow-up once we start to see that, you know, the groups of people that aren't showing up, that aren't reaching out to the training department, that aren't.
Did you do a mail out to people you haven't seen in forever, or do they just like, because it floats, right? Like, oh, we have 180 that maybe signed up, 180, sorry. That'd be lovely. But you know what I mean? But you haven't seen them for a long time. Did they get like a mail out of like?
No, we reached out to everybody individually.
And they still didn't,
Yeah, there's a couple.
like, either resign, like resign or come, so you,
No, they're sitting.
and they still haven't even done either.
We had.
That's what I mean, like,
we reached out-
nobody's really letting you know one way or the other, like, there's a lot of floater, okay,
We're getting, that's very minimal.
okay.
That's those numbers, like the numbers of people that haven't come at all are very minimal, which is good.
Yeah.
But again, it's, we have to, they're either gonna be on board or they're off, right? So then,
Yeah,
that's
you need to
why
know where
we're.
you're at, so
Yeah.
you-
And that's why I came out with the attendance and training policy. So it's very clear to everybody, and we touch base with people that hadn't made those meetings already, so which is, most of them have been caught up. There's just a handful,
Cool.
like just, I think 3 or 4 that,
The training is not gonna go away.
No, it's not, and like I said, you miss 3 or 4 weeks of training, and that's, that's 8 hours that you have to make up at some point. And that's, so once you start stacking that up to 8 hours or 10 hours, and, it just kind of gets almost to the point where you just can't get caught up. And, but we're trying not to get to that.
What are the active number of members right now, say in Massey? At the Massey station?
Do you have that, sure?
No, I don't have those numbers, I have the overall numbers, but, I know with the combined Massey, or combined Webwood and Shakespeare, I think we were sitting at 15, 16, around there. Massey's the biggest station with,
I know you're saying one came forward to resign, I mean, I got a lot of phone calls, people was here that day, a bunch of people, and I don't know that.
Yeah, and I haven't.
That's just for my concern.
And I don't think, no, and I was speaking to that, I don't think anybody's coming in about resignations.
And they're aware that that's the process, so
Yeah.
they're aware it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
formality, you
Yeah.
know, like it needs to be documented.
Yeah, and it's been going on for a while. It's like.
Oh, yeah.
We're aware, council, the last council was aware. It's on the way.
The ball's kind of on their court.
We'll see where it goes.
And did we not appoint 3 new volunteers tonight?
Yeah.
So
That's
to
in-
me,
that's in the
that's,
East End, so that's good.
that's good.
So that Station 5 is what one?
Yeah, it's Station 5, it's Shakespeare. Yeah, I just know what to live with. Right now, we're just kind of combining those because of numbers, but everyone's kind of working together there, but.
Any other questions for Blair or not? Talk to us about this, fire engineering training platform.
Yeah, so that's something that came to us kind of late last year, let's say October. Fire engineering is, to give a bit of history, fire engineering is actually, it's a magazine that's in the US. They're very well known worldwide for training, they put on a massive training seminar in Minnesota, I think it is. It's called FDIC. It's attended by tens of thousands of firefighters every year. It's the main training and conference to keep up with what's happening in the fire service, fire equipment, and pretty much anything you can imagine. They have training on. I've been using fire engineering in our training when I was training officer. They have a great library of training. So what they did was they realized there's a bit of a gap with online training and an online platform that can help us distribute training and help us develop training. So when I saw them, they're also involved in research and development of the new fire techniques, and they're pretty cutting edge. So when I saw that they had a training platform, I thought, okay, let's hear about this. So myself and Alex Shea, our training officer, we had a demonstration of the platform, and what it is, it's all of the they've created it's online, and there's an app as well. You can access it by cell phone. A subscription service that we can have training of the actual courses that we have on book. So the textbooks that we have now, there's videos, there's all of the training. It's basically the same course that you would take at the Ontario Fire College, but it's put into an app form. And then the nice part about it is, we had a chance to, I think Alex and I had a few weeks of playing around with it, and it's pretty slick. It's nice and easy to use, even for someone that maybe isn't so technically sound. But what it does is it allows us to be able to instruct the courses. All of the textbook stuff is in front of us. The videos are in front of us. We can use those at a training night. And the nice part about it is, if you happen to miss a training night, we can actually, in the administrative part of it, the training department can actually assign it. So if Blair Ramsey misses training on tonight in Massey, and I wasn't able to make the Thursday night, they can say, okay, here's what we discussed, here's the lesson, and assign it with a diary date, and keep track of things in the background on the administrative side. So there's two kind of bonuses to this. It allows us to instruct the training. It has all the courses that we require, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, auto education, hazardous material, all the stuff that all of the courses that we would take, because we have the manuals to teach from the manuals, we can teach it online and then be able to distribute it out to everybody that misses. Or we can assign a course, for example, Officer 1. So one of our criteria all of our officers have to have Officer 1. We can assign that to them to work on their own, and then come together as a group, and then work, take some of the things back that we, or do some get together quarterly instead of maybe taking a weekend or 2 or 3 weekends. We can assign everybody the course, and they can work on it on their own. On the back side of it, it allows us on the administration side, it keeps track of all of our people that have licenses, what training they've taken, when they've taken it. It basically creates training logs and training logs for us, which is fantastic. A couple of years ago, we were looking at a couple of other options similar to this, and when it got down to pricing, it was way up there. It was double to triple what the cost is for this. They understand. I mean, they're based in the U.S., but keep in mind NFPA standards are what the OFM have adopted. So these are our standards. So it meets everything that we're required to do as far as training. It'd be great for our training department because we can give them the administrative access to be able to keep track of who's outstanding. Right now we're doing it by spreadsheets and
this is something that, because I know you have some firefighters that go away, like for working, so
Yes.
they're gone.
Yeah.
And they're, an example, they're a committed person, but they're physically in a different province.
Yes.
So they're able to access, complete, stay up, and then come back and do
as long as they can do the practical.
and
So
then do the practical upon their return home.
that's right. And maybe we could even, once we get to a certain point, if this is approved, obviously, but another thing that we can do is assign the bookwork to work on at home for the week, to whenever you're available to use it. It may only be an hour or half an hour, whatever. And then once we hit training, it's all practical. So then we're good to go, right? Another benefit to it, another benefit is it appeals to the younger people, right? Like it's that technical piece that the younger people are super comfortable with, apps on their phones, accessing it wherever you have internet. So it might help us a little bit with recruitment and retention. It's another bonus I think that may be helpful to us. Yeah, it's a pretty slick program. I mean, I think it was $69 or $79 and $69 per member, which is pretty darn good for this. It's per year for a subscription service. So I tried to and the reason why I think when you see the invoice that's there, I tried to split it to have a little bit paid for before December happened, but it just didn't work out that way. So, which is why I'm bringing it to you now. But it's something that would be a great enhancement to our program. It's something that I think if we and this is looking a bit bigger picture, if we test this and it works out well, I'm sure that other agencies are going to jump in on it as well. Once they see the benefits so it could be we're kind of testing things out, testing the waters out a little bit for other agencies as well.
I like what I saw, in particular, like you said, recruitment and retention. But it might also go a long ways to helping us solve some of our problems with people wanting to train. You're gonna make it easier.
Yeah, it just gives us that other option to help
We need some options there right now, so I think it's a great idea. That's small price to pay if it's gonna enhance your service, help you keep your firefighters and draw in the.
Yeah, and then, on the back end, have that ability to have the reporting.
Well, that's right.
Because if something happens, we have everybody's check boxes, right? It's right there for us, and it's kept replaced. I mean, it's kept online, so they have a server that they keep it on, so that we can access.
And if somebody doesn't use it at all,
We know.
but they do their homework, or like they do that, then you input that as an administrator?
Yes.
So that it creates your database and keeps it up.
Yeah. So as soon as the way it works is Blair
I was
Ramsey
thinking
signs
just,
in.
like Sables.
Yeah, so Blair Ramsey has an account, and I have an email address and a password, so I can sign in from anywhere there's internet on the app, on an app on your phone or online. So if Alex Shea assigns me ladders because I missed it last week, with a diary date of next week to make sure you get through this, because we're going to on next week we're going to do a practical. then I could go through it, but we'll see that. We'll see when
No,
they
I
have
mean, like,
access.
what if somebody never ever uses this platform?
Okay, so we'll know.
But they go to the training.
Yeah, oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
You know
so
what I mean?
right,
So then you will input it on their behalf.
yes, so
That's what I mean.
that's right. So if we were to have, like you said, a training session where we had a number of people, so 15 people came to training that night, all those 15 people would have their check boxes in the training
Because
from
they're,
that night. The rest would be assigned.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so yeah, and we can even put our own courses in there. So if we have something that we decide we do some video, we create our own little skill for something, we can put that in there as well to be able to train over the next years too, which is kind of nice. And it allows us to build
There's
it.
alternate access to training, was that initially with the first policy that came out? Because what some of the firefighters are saying, it's just they felt it was too rigid, they're looking for a little more training flexibility where they can do it online.
Yeah, this is
So it's
this is helping with that.
added into
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of was
Yeah,
flexibility
it's just
in
a-
training.
adds to our flexibility.
Yeah.
Adds to our ability for people to kind of access it whenever they can.
Yeah, they can.
And it's nice because that's all the theory, right? So if we can get some of the theory out of the way and then have just practical practices, training, it'd be a bonus.
Because their concern was having to be there physically for all the training.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still gonna have the skills, so that part of it, you'll still have to attend to, so it's for sure.
The process,
It's gonna be
right?
practical stuff.
Yeah.
It's real permanent.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're trying to be as forward thinking as we can with stuff like this, because I know it's a big change and it's a change for everybody. But it'd be interesting to see now, because we just hired the 3 people now, and those will be the first 3 that we've brought on from the start. So it'll be a good gauge, a good field gauge to see how this
Things
plays
will
out.
start to change quickly when that group comes in that's never seen any different.
Yeah.
Things will start to change.
Yeah, I think so, and don't get me wrong, we do have a solid group of 30 to 35 people that are extremely dedicated, that are coming to calls all the time, they're running the department right now.
Yeah.
And so we're pretty good, and having the number of calls that we had last year, which is probably, it's a pretty high number, we usually sit around 100, which is still high, but we weren't hurting for people to call.
That's good. So you've got a good solid department.
There is a good solid team and a well-trained team.
Any more questions for Chief Rankin? If not, then, be it resolved that the fire chief be authorized to purchase a subscription to Fire Engineering Academy for an online firefighter training platform at a cost of $1,170 US for 2023 and $2,250 US for 2024. We have a mover. Harold, second. Edie, all in favor?
Thank you, appreciate that.
It's only gonna make us better.
We appreciate all the work you're doing.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Thank you.
Thanks, Blair.
Have a great night, everybody.
Mr. Paquette, if you'd like to come up and discuss your report.
Good evening, for those of you who haven't met, my name is Richard Paquette. I'm one of the bylaw enforcement officers that works for Rainbow District Animal Services and Bylaw Enforcement. I say one of, because I'll notice even in the agenda, it's the Bylaw Enforcement Officers Report. But what I'd like to emphasize today is that really it's a service. We have 3 full-time employees now, plus my father, Richard Paquette, who's more or less retired, but still there as kind of the admiral that helps to tell the ship where to go, as they say.
Senior Richard Jr.
I'm Richard Jr.
I didn't know that.
And Richard Senior is the owner of Winter Kennels Incorporated, of course. They've been a business. It was actually Winter Kennels' 50th anniversary this year, which is interesting in that respect. But in order to, cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the area that we cover, we do have 3 full-time employees. One of them is very much responsible for shelter management, right? You see even in the report, there's still quite a few animals that come in from Sables-Spanish rivers, annually. I think it's a little less this year than it's been in previous years, but that dynamic is changing. While there was a lot of demand early in 2022 for animals, that has really kind of waned off, and we're starting to see that, people abandoning animals, which didn't really happen a lot during the pandemic. But, and the numbers did go down a little bit as far as animals who were taking in during the pandemic, but the pandemic, I don't even want to tell you how challenging that was in this, we go to people's houses all the time. So, there's a lot of apprehension and difficulty, and even the systems that we have for administering the bylaw, like the Provincial Offences Act, is very much an in-person, come see at your house kind of system, right? Where, a lot of the documents we need to serve, they need to be served in person. Where, that creates a lot of challenges and a lot of conflict, as you can imagine, right? Going forward, I've made the proposal that the town look at a system of administrative monetary penalties. And this is something that's happening all across the province, and we definitely wouldn't be the first municipality to adopt it. And the system, like the Provincial Offences Act, is basically set up for traffic court, and it's very good for police officers to deal with traffic tickets. As far as bylaw enforcement, it's not really there, right? People's expectation of, I took a picture of that dog, I sent you the picture and the video, why do I have to go to court? Right, that's a question I get all the time. Yeah. That's a good question, right? But, even we had a trial early this year, and, one of the big questions was, well, her husband was the one that identified the owner of the dog, and the husband wasn't there, just the wife, so they weren't even able to put that on the record. Right, and it seems like it should be something very straightforward, but it wasn't, right? And, the Provincial Offences Act has been around for a long time. And, it's a challenging system, but we continue to work within that. And, in fact, if the municipality is not going to go forward with an AMP system, there's a couple of our bylaws that we're working a lot with, including property standards and the noise bylaw, that do need to have approved short form wordings put in place so that we can issue Part 1 fines instead of Part 3 summonses. I agree. There's, it's like, I think people's expectation of what we are able to do as far as issuing fines or, taking animals away from people, right? Like that's a very, a very difficult process that we have now. But I think that if we had a little more early intervention with fines, then we'd have a lot more kind of, and to me, the way the system is now is that I don't think there's really that credible expectation of being fined at the end of the day. You plead not guilty, you go through that process, you let it drop. You know what I mean? I don't want to, it's not a problem with the people or the courts or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know. It's been definitely challenging, and as the people's respect for authority, I think it's been a general downgrade for a lot of reasons, right? But we've seen that on the streets, right?
So for property standards complaint, what would be like kind of a turnaround time to someone calls with a complaint? You go and investigate, what would be the turnaround time to resolve that issue? Like ballpark figure, like what would be the minimum to maximum kind of time you'd see to try and resolve?
Well, if the person is interested in complying with the bylaw, right? Sometimes on the first visit, you go back a month later and they've done what you need them to do and the case is closed. People that don't want to abide by the bylaw, what we have now is a system where we can put an order in place. So they have then 2 weeks after that to appeals to the Property Standards Committee. And we've issued probably 30 orders in Sables-Spanish, we've only had one appeal filed so far. So the orders we're issuing are, and even the one that has been appealed, it'll come for the appeal committee in the next little while. I don't see why, but, people have that right to appeal, right? So we have to respect that.
Because I have this one person has extensive notes and has provided me with correspondence with yourself and with her lawyer. She spent like $1,000 on legal fees already. It's been 3 years since her initial complaint.
So it's difficult for me to comment on individual cases, right? I have come to council for in-camera sessions to discuss individual cases, but, we've put a few cases, property standards cases before the courts already, and the process for that playing itself out, is not fast, right? Like I laid a charge in June, and it's still being, and nowhere close to going to trial. And in fact, there's very little interest in bringing these matters to trial, right? They want resolution, right? And if the person charged with offense generally demonstrates that they do stuff to fix the problem, right? Fines are not something that's really happening under the current system.
Without giving any details, I mean, if I did go and I see the neighbor's property, and there's some minor things where that could just be removed, like rubbish all over the place, tarps hanging that can be removed, but they're not being removed. So how do we enforce that to ensure that those basic things that aren't, I know some of the comments and some of the letters that she had given me some correspondence were saying that, well, because of COVID, they can't get the necessary materials to complete some of these partial structures.
Have you talked to the other party in the case, or?
I have not talked to the other party in the case, but I do see the stuff that's still there that's indicated in here, which was an infraction that was supposed to be rectified and hasn't been.
So that might be one of the cases that either we're moving to bring to court or right? If an order's been issued, right, then we have an entire year before a charge needs to be laid under the Part 3 of the Original Offences Act, right? So if I can imagine what case that you're talking about, like this is probably a case where, that person says one thing, but the other person feels like we're being harassed and being unfair and we're coming down too hard on them and expecting things that they can't do.
Right. And I understand you have to kind of weed out, he said, she said kind of thing. But when I went there to look, there was obvious infractions.
Well, new things or like sometimes, they take away the new
Looks like it's been there, and from what I'm hearing, that stuff has been there, the things hanging have been there.
Well, fencing, for instance, there's a number of cases we're dealing with fencing. There is no fence bylaw, right? So you can put up whatever kind of fence you want. And there's not a lot that we can do to regulate fences, right? The zoning bylaw says a fence should be made of this, this, and this, but to bring a zoning bylaw to charge is a big deal. It's not under the plan, right? So somebody having a fence that their neighbor doesn't like isn't necessarily something that's gonna go forward, right? But do you know if they filed an appeal or the order?
I'm not sure. Do you mean the ones with the property needs to be improved? Those that filed an appeal? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
because that kind of puts a stop to a lot of things, right? When an appeal's filed, right? We have to wait for that appeal to play out, of course.
But it sounds like from some of the documentation, they were saying that, yeah, okay, we're going to comply, we're going to complete this structure, but we're only going to get material because of COVID. I'm just,
Well, that was a big problem for a lot of people.
Right,
So there's a number of
that's
cases where that excuse came up. And
Right. So how do we push it when people are, what if I was that neighbor to you and I'm saying, oh, well, it's COVID, I can't get the.
so for property standards, we really should have Part 1 set fines.
Yeah.
And those fines should be $100, $200, $500, something like that, right? And that would solve a lot of cases, right? Because, we issue the Part 3 summons, right? And that's just a first appearance, no fine, right? They show up at court, they, they get their disclosure, like I said, there's one case we filed in June. There's some cases we filed, in 2020 that are still not resolved at court, so. The administrative monitoring system that we've been talking about, right, and I've sent the draft bylaw for council to look at, or for Ann to look at, I'm not sure if you shared that up the line yet. But, municipalities that adopt that see cases resolved in 45 days. Where, under with the tools that I have now, we're looking at 6 months to a year. And, in some cases, you have to kind of take those excuses with the grain of, and look to see, is this really that much of a problem and is it in the public interest to proceed, right? Because a lot of times, it's not just me that decides whether or not a case goes forward, right? I have to prepare brief and evidence and put that to a lawyer, and a lawyer's got to be happy that there's a reasonable prospect of conviction before, that goes forward, so.
So you feel that having fines would speed up the compliance then?
Having set fines, and we will either use part 1 tickets, like the same tickets we issue for, first and second, third offenses for dogs at large, right? So those tickets would, I think, help a lot with, especially the minor issues, right? Because, like when you use part 3 of the Provincial Offences Act, it's supposed to be meant for more serious offenses than, right, there's basically 3 levels of court. There's part 1, which is the ticket process, which you'd be familiar with if you had a traffic ticket. Part 3 is the summons process, where, we go to court and there's first and second appearance and a whole bunch of other things. There's also Superior Court, which is above that, which is where, the very serious cases go, especially, serious zoning matters or those kind of offenses, right? And there's a number of big cases that we're working on that have taken up, I don't want to tell you how much of my time, right? We move those cases forward, and it's not always up to me what happens at the end of the day, right? I don't, we can issue fines and summonses, and orders, right? But whether people comply with those orders, right, is not under my control necessarily. It's under the person, that owns the property's control, right? And we have to convince them through either, their good moral standing as citizens, or through fines and if that's not, if they're not willing to just voluntarily comply, right?
Is there other municipalities where the bylaw officer goes around and can pursue a property that's not up to standards without a complaint going in?
Espanola and Spanish, the 2 other municipalities that they don't have such a provision in their bylaw, but Nair and Baldwin and Sables-Spanish all have the same property standards bylaw, which was written in 2014, before residential tenancies were downloaded on municipalities. So they don't actually have provisions to cover residential tenancies in them, which means that we're responsible for enforcing the Residential Tenancies Act, and the court isn't, if somebody disagrees with an order, it doesn't go to your local committee, it goes to the LTD, and we have to go there and represent the tenant, right? So, luckily that hasn't happened yet, and, one of my priorities for as soon as we get a moment to breathe, is, of course, better bylaws as far as property standards is a big priority, right? But, the animal control bylaw definitely needs to be revisited, right? $100 fines for the kind of thing that people are letting their animals do is not enough, right? We need, $200-300 fines to start, and, a system where, those are actually being enforced, and, things aren't just.
Because one of the concerns some of the people who have filed complaints is that, you file a complaint against your neighbor, they know where the complaint has come from, is what they're saying. So then it pits neighbor against neighbor, so not only do you have a property that's not up to standard, but it's just got that constant.
Well, Sables-Spanish not only has that in the property standards bylaw, but they also have a complaint policy where, I don't know, I guess there was a bylaw enforcement officer at some time that was way too proactive and went around, and that's a fear that people have, right? That, that I'm gonna go and, I don't like this, and, so there is, there's two sides to every, right, for all the people that say that we don't do enough, there's, just as many people that say we do, right, or we're stalking them, or we're driving around in a big white truck with rainbows on it.
But again, that would require another level of service, right? If you're gonna go start being the sheriff and roaming the township looking for violations. That's another.
Well, but if Ann or one of the other staff members has a concern, right?
Well,
It shouldn't necessarily.
and any counselor as well can call the township office and request that Richard look into a certain property.
Well, written complaint, and I think we need to, and I've discussed this, with senior staff, but, email complaints are acceptable, or we don't necessarily like electronic signature,
Yeah.
or mean signature to be, right? So we accept email complaints. We have a new evidence system where, we can have people send us big videos and lots of other stuff that we didn't have even 2 years ago. It comes with the subscription for the body worn camera, which, just the subscription for that data service is $1,000 a year. The camera was a $3,000 initial purchase, right? Another thing that we made investments in this year was body armor, right now 2 cents. So both for a large size for myself, but a smaller size for more smaller people and under our employer, right? I've had a number of deputies come and go over the last number of years, with the pandemic has made staffing positions very difficult. And I'm very happy to say that, I now have somebody as that third lieutenant, where, I have myself and Lindsay McKay, who's been with us for over 20 years, who many of you may have talked to on the phone. And she's, trained as an officer as well, but keep her at the shelter as much as we can. But now I do have that third person to, that you're gonna see this summer, probably a lot of her going out with me to learn the job, right? Because it's not, I've done training courses and there's lots of different courses you can take, but nothing compares to actual the experience of doing it, right?
Give me an example of $100 one.
Well, right now, letting your dog run at large is $100.
Just let them run.
Yeah.
So if he's running, like they've always run, that's sort of $100 fine?
Yes.
Yeah, dog at large is supposed to be what's called a strict liability offense, right? So there's no excuse, right? Your dog left your property, it wasn't on a leash, you're guilty, right? Assuming that we can establish that beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Difference between the administrative monetary system and the AMPS system and the current POA system, the burden of proof is not the same. Right, we're looking at establishing something on a balance of probabilities. The type of evidence that we can enter is based on whatever the hearing officer is willing to accept versus the 200 years of jurisprudence that governs proceedings under the Provincial Offences Act, right? So, instead of under administrative monetary penalties, instead of the current system where, especially if it's part 3, they look at the prosecutor's going to review the case, satisfied with the score, that's just adjust the piece, and then they decide, any case that's, going to take more than 2 hours of trial has a judicial pretrial, that takes another couple months, and, that whole process, and this whole process you're paying for, right? So if somebody pleads not guilty, whether or not we think it's an open and shut case, right, that's, the municipality ultimately pays for that under the current agreement that you have with the town of Espanola to govern provincial offences. You're paying for the prosecution, you're paying for, all of that. And, and the fines have not been meeting the fines you're getting back are not meeting the expectation that the public has for, what should be happening in these cases.
What if those fines collection, is that all right? Like, you're just thinking like a dog at large? So like you come in, you give me the fine, like, does everybody pay it? Or do you just?
Well, those go to the provincial
Or that's
offences,
again
right?
out of you, like that's where your involvement stops, correct? You
And-
issue and then it moves on.
Well, unless they're not guilty plea and they go to court,
Okay.
right? But that's all handled by the POA office in
Yeah,
Espanola.
yeah.
Right, it's the same system, and it's all the same pool of money that the Highway Traffic Act and Environmental Protection Act, and all these other acts that fall under the, and, you know, we compete for court time with all those other things that are going on, right? And, but basically you don't pay your fine. If I put your date of birth and your correct address on the ticket, then there's a greater chance a collection agency will have. Right, but there's no system under the Provincial Offences Act to charge that back to your property taxes, where that is something that happens under administrative monetary penalties. So somebody doesn't pay their fines,
Yeah, they're gonna pay it.
Thank you, that's what I wanted you to get to.
they're gonna put it on your property, and there's a much easier system for doing that than, right, and it's a debt to the municipality, right, versus where you're debt to the crown, right?
Yep. Perfect.
You know, like, I noticed that, I'm not sure what the Espanola numbers are, but Greater Sudbury forgives like $1 million in fines every, like $1 million of them, they forgive. Like they've gone 20 years, they're not gonna collect them, they give up on them. Or not forgive, they write them off, right? But they're still debts to the crown, but they're not, you know, on the books anymore. And I don't believe the numbers are much different in Espanola or any jurisdiction in Ontario, which is one of the reasons why this new administrative monetary penalty system has been set up by the province, right? And why a lot of the bigger municipalities have gone that way now. There's challenges, of course, for doing it in a small town like Sables-Spanish or Espanola, but I do hope that Nairn involved in Espanola and Sables-Spanish and Spanish, all the clients that I have doing property standards with bylaw enforcement, will kind of work together on this in some respect. Like having, you know, a hearing officer that everybody shares, and hopefully, you know, when we issue more fines and more people pay their fines, we can cover those kind of costs as well, right? So it has been kind of a revenue neutral thing for a lot of municipalities. Provincial offenses is, from what I can see as far as bylaw enforcement, is not something that's breaking.
No, not even close.
No.
Well, it sounds like a promising. I think we'll get results from it as we go. Mike, sorry.
Oh, no,
Are there different levels of classifications for animals running at large that would be considered a danger or a specific hazard?
Well, as soon as an animal bites somebody else and somebody's willing to go on the record and testify in court that it happened, right? If I could prove it, at least beyond a reasonable doubt, if I'm going to use the bylaw offense or on the balance of probabilities, if we use the Dog Owners Liability Act. The, you know, basic fine we have is $100, right? But then we can go up to $5,000 on a Part 3 summons, and up to $10,000 under the Dog Owners Liability Act.
Are you
Right.
making very specific?
Well, it's, yeah, like I'm talking maybe a poodle versus a pit bull.
Very specific.
Well, there is still the Dog Owners Liability Act very much still does, you know, prohibit pit bulls, right? And, you know, there's dogs that we don't adopt out that could be adopted out, right? For no other reason than they're pit bulls, right? That does happen still. You know, there's, we do have to treat dogs that are pit bulls under the Dog Owners Liability Act different than other dogs, right? You know, if, especially when they come into custody, right? And that creates a lot of situations, uncomfortable situations, right? There are, you know, situations where we're in trial for 3 days at court somewhere, you know, whether or not the dog bit somebody, or whether or not the, you know, the pictures were nice enough or something like that, right?
So response time, so say if I call tomorrow morning and said, Richard, I got this vicious dog running around within the township, what kind of response time could we expect?
Like the same day, next day, like at least for a first visit, right? If they've registered their dog and have a phone number, right, then that's my next part, right? I'm on the phone with that person, you know, where's your dog right now? You know, if the dog, like, we don't have, you know, like stray dogs running around the town, right? That's, you know, every dog's owned by somebody, right? That's, you know, like 30 years ago or 20 years, we have abandoned dogs here and there, right? And then more this year than like last year, right? You know, that kind of went away a little bit, but it's definitely back, right? People are abandoning pets again. But something's gonna happen right away, right? If I have that phone number,
But that would be hard to prove, like I'm just saying, if you couldn't physically be there and you called the person whose dog's running the yard, say, no, the dog's in the yard, it's. That was the one big concern I heard too, was the response time or lack of response time in Stanton.
well, most, like, I can't think of any complaints where there's been a dog running at large for 13 hours and it's been unaddressed. That's never, to my knowledge, happened, right? There's, maybe a case where somebody thinks it's, more fines or quicker fines or something should have been issued, right? But, if we see a dog in the road, we go try and capture that dog right away. Right, and if we put that dog in the back of the truck, right, those people are paying an impound fee to get their dog out of the truck, right? That's one power that we do have under the municipal act grants us, is the ability to impound dogs and charge fees to get them out of the truck, right?
Like, but you're an hour and a half, I would say, from where you're located to Massey, I would say, or west of Massey, right?
Right.
Right. So I'm just saying, if you couldn't see the dog out, how would you?
Well, we rely, we do rely on witness testimony, right, in a lot of cases, right? So if somebody saw the dog, they took a picture of the dog, right? I believe that, there's a reasonable prospect that a justice of the peace will agree that happened, right? If the person's credible, right? Not everybody that calls or that will complain to you is necessarily a credible witness, right? That we're willing to bring a charge forward on their behalf, right?
And at that point, you just administer the fine, you wouldn't impound the dog.
Like if the dog, like a pit bull, it's like there's a way to impound a pit bull that's being a menace, right? I can go get a search warrant for any dog that, that I think is a problem, right? I can think of a case that everybody, was big talk of the town, that's what those dogs, he eventually surrendered those dogs, right? Has he paid a fine yet in court? Right? We issued 12 tickets, right? But, as far as I know, I've had a report yet that there's been, and in that particular case, which, I'm not track that.
And you're able to come through, like, just because where I live, like, we know everybody's dogs, so usually again, I don't want to run any neighbors, but it's like, usually I can just go like, shoo in the yard, and they'll come in the yard, and then I call like their owner to come pick them up. But say it's somebody I don't know, because for some reason they will just like come in my big fenced yard, and then I can secure them.
Have you tied a dog up in your backyard?
No, I don't tie them up because I don't know.
Well, that's what we encourage people to do.
No, I just like let them in because I don't know the dogs, so I don't trust dogs.
Right.
So I'll let them in, but I'll secure them.
Yeah.
And say, if I don't know them and I call you, like, are you able to come that same day and take them out of my yard?
And we come after hours too, right?
Okay.
I've come at 3 a.m.
I've only
More
let
than one
people I
occasion,
know,
right?
like, dogs I know that I know their owners, but if I have a strange dog, I can call you and you'll be there same day, like.
Yeah, if somebody's willing to hold it overnight, we always ask that question, of course, right? And if they can't and they feel that the dog needs to be, if the dog's injured and we can't locate an owner, right? I do post things on Facebook, right? Because it's an hour or two, right, to get anywhere, right? Even if I live in Espanola, sometimes depending on what you're doing. And there's other calls, right? So somebody, it took them 4 hours to get here. Well, I might have been doing something more important than your call, right? And I can't tell you what I was doing, right? Because that would be inappropriate, right?
Thank you.
But yes, so if there's a confined dog, we go on those calls. An injured animal, we go on those calls same day, right? And I can't think of any situations where there's been a menacing dog running around for days, right? That doesn't happen, right? We figure out who the dog owner is, we give them notice that, there's an expectation with provincial statutes and other things, like Dog Owners Liability Act, of knowing that you shouldn't be committing that offense. There's an expectation, not that such an expectation in the jurisprudence or bylaw, right? We are supposed to tell them that there's a bylaw that they're breaking, right? So unless it's a very serious occurrence, right? And you think that you can argue at court and get over that, jurisprudence, right? You're generally going to give a notice on a first occurrence. And, you know, sometimes a second or a third, depends on the situation. Right, some people get away with way too much, right? You know, and we issue tickets and sometimes those don't have very much back.
Okay, it's been informative. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, and like I said, it's been, you know, I don't wanna say that things didn't always run well in the past, but, right, since we've taken over, there's been a lot of, you know, well, nobody said anything about it for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, you know. So, you know, there has been a lot of patience exercised with, you know, on both ways, right? And some people take that as, you know, we're not doing enough, some people take that as we do too much.
Of course. Lots of armchair lawyers. Anyway, yeah, so far so good. Lots more work to do. And with that, if we could have a motion, be it resolved that the bylaw enforcement and animal control officers report for 2022 be accepted as presented. Edie moves, second. Mary Ann, all in favor? Carried.
That's to be excused, but I think that I would like to listen to Mr. Weller if you're gonna entertain him still this evening.
It'll
Well,
be in closed
that's
session.
gonna be in closed session.
How is closed session determined? Who determines a closed session?
Well, if you're not identifying individuals,
A name or a prop or an address.
well, yeah,
Could you?
And you didn't need me for the closed session.
no.
Alright.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
So next up is OPP.
That was just for information, the calls for service.
Yeah, any questions on that?
That's what it is. So Carson's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next up, progress payment number 6, Algoma Front Street water main replacement. Be it resolved that the attached progress payment number 6 in favor of JL Enterprises in the amount of $119,997.51, including HST for the Algoma Front Street water main replacement project, be approved for payment. Have a mover? Harold, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Board of Health appointment.
I've circulated some additional information just to get an idea of how it works and what the scheduling of that.
So, McQuash Foothills Municipal Association, which is Narren, Baldwin, Espanola, and us. We get to send one person to the Board of Health. Now, Espanola and Baldwin are not interested, we are in Narren. I had recommended, well, I didn't recommend, but I mentioned it to Mike, because Mike is a healthcare professional. But Mike didn't feel that he could commit to that, but any change of heart?
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, Kevin, but I would have to give something up, like maybe the Parks and Rec chair. Would just be too much right now for me.
You realize it's during the day though, right? That's like the Board of Health meetings. and
So all those are all during working hours, yeah, I wouldn't be able to commit to that.
And see, I mean, I can't touch that because DSAB is the same day until noon and beyond most of the time, so.
Yeah, that's true.
I did get in touch with John Brunetti, and he does send me some of the minutes and stuff too, and then when I have chances, I'll have them emailed to Matty, review them.
Oh, sure,
But
sure.
as far as sitting on it now, for
Yeah,
certain the day,
and they discussed having additional meetings for committees, so.
yeah.
Is anybody interested in and sitting there. Like, I think it's important for you to stick with recreation. It's important for you to have a local committee to
Yeah,
chair.
for sure, yeah. And this,
It would be okay.
And again, Aaron is interested, so, you know, we can talk to the mayor there and see where that's at. So. And unless somebody else is interested in the position.
Yeah, it's difficult when it's during the day.
It is. You've got to be able to put things aside, and if you can't, that's fine.
But you can see how it would be beneficial to have.
Well, it would be good. You're gonna get things firsthand and
Yeah.
take advantage of programs and
Yeah.
whatnot.
And this would need to be a council meeting, so, or could it be in? yeah,
No, it's a
okay.
council.
No, it has to be
Member of
council.
So it has to be a council meeting.
Well, think about it. You know, we don't have to have an answer right away. I mean, I guess it was easy last term. A lot of it was done virtually, and so. But there doesn't appear to be a virtual option this time.
Well, they talked about, they're still kind of doing hybrid meetings.
Oh, really? I didn't get
Yeah,
that.
so in that one that I forwarded, she had said that, they're held in person, however, depending if they were held virtually. We are planning on resuming in-person / hybrid meetings in February.
Hi.
So some people that can go,
Some
will go,
people
people that
can
can't would join virtually.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to them about that. So we'll defer that. And again, Aaron is interested, so as long as somebody from the association is there. But again, we'll defer.
And no meetings in March, July, August, December.
No,
So it's
summer's
not even
off.
every month.
No, it's 9 months, I think, out of 5 years.
I'll check, I'll see what I can, hate to say yes and then not be able to stay with you.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, moving on, Memorial Bench, Grandview Cemetery. Be it resolved that we accept the donation of a memorial bench to be installed in the Grandview Cemetery in memoriam of Marvin and Isabel Gross in a pre-approved location with installation to be approved by township staff, and that all costs associated with this project be the responsibility of Mrs. Marshall. Any questions on that? Comments?
Wonderful.
I think it's wonderful.
Can I have a mover? Aaron, second. As, all in favor? Any questions on the Parks and Recreation report? Comments?
Good. Maybe concerned with that fuel tank for them.
Yeah, well, that'll get dealt with. I mean, I don't know, we can't deal with it, we can't deal with it right now.
It's not a huge issue.
And I guess there's a carnival committee or something.
Hopefully the carnival, bit of a carnival, I
Okay.
think.
So could I have a mover be it resolved that the Parks and Rec meeting report of January 18th, 2023 be accepted as presented? Mike, second Edie, all in favor? Carried. Okay, that looks like that's it for now. Anything from anybody? So we're gonna move into closed session now.
Point of order. How do we move into closed session when you don't know what you're going to talk about?
The man is wise enough to know he doesn't want to put identifiable people in his conversation. Secondly, there is an exemption to the identified people, okay, if it's common knowledge.
Well, it's not common knowledge to
Oh, believe
everybody.
me, it is. My
Well-
Facebook page today was just ripping, okay?
Well, I know that, but it's not knowledge that's been shared
That's
by
fine.
anybody at this table.
But he still has the right in open council, okay, to discuss what he wants to discuss. If he veers into that personal identification, then cut him off and move into closed session. But we're setting a really bad precedent, okay? Really bad. And we don't know what somebody's gonna say, and we say to them, you have to have closed session. We only know the subject he's talking about, and basically, when I talk to him, it's really a zoning matter. That's what it is. It's a zoning matter, whether council is going to enforce the bylaw, or they're going to get the other party to rezone. One or the other, and that is not a secret. I don't think, that's my impression.
It was a pretty multi-layered situation. It wasn't strictly a zoning issue.
Well, perhaps if we let him talk and you make sure that he doesn't veer.
I don't know how you can say it won't be identified who the person is or who you're talking to when you plan to show videos and photos.
Doesn't have any video.
Well, I don't know, that's what I was told
Well,
in the
and I
request
understand
to
that.
speak to
And
council,
I
so.
understand that. Since he was told about trying to go into closed session, and I talked to him, he's changed it, okay, to stick and leave individuals out of it. And I don't think that's an issue.
Well, it would be nice if we got the proper information in the first place.
I agree.
Yeah, so,
Okay, we won't move into closed session. I'll accept the delegation. Your mic, I
Yeah,
assume?
I had, Kathy had a letter here.
I know Kathy.
Yeah, she
I
has a letter
discussed
here
the
that,
situation with Kathy.
Do you guys want to look at the letter? Well, like, would you not look at the letter before it's read? So there's no issue? And if not, you can read it. if you like.
Mike, would you like to come to the table?
And you have Kathy's letter?
Yes. Yeah, I just went, this is, 1, 2, 4 pages here. Just have a look at it.
Should we read it aloud on her behalf? Rather than, like, if it's.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Identifying
saying?
anybody.
Oh, right, okay. No names, nothing identifiable.
Kind of long-winded, eh, Kevin?
Yeah, you always were.
Thank you, you're putting it mildly.
Sure, we can read it.
And that's only because you're not comfortable public speaking.
Yeah,
Anxiety
that's
with
public
pub-
speaking.
and that's fine.
That's
Having-
fine.
Having issues with
Want
public
to read
speaking,
it, Edie?
it
or-
doesn't matter.
I'll read it. As soon as this corporation took over the property, it went on a decline. Day one, everything on the property was cut. This was a pine forest planted by a company, beautiful mature trees. Immediately, this corporation did anything they wanted to, no rules or permits, leaving junk everywhere, setting up living quarters with multi-trailers, workers living there at times, old equipment and tractor trailers, an eyesore. There was also a fire in one of the trailers and the fire department was there. Then they started working on heavy equipment, doing all of their service such as oil changes. They never had any respect for the land. Diesel fuel and traces of oil could be noticeable after rainfall. 5-gallon pails of oil littered the property. To this day, there's still the old pails and old tires. The workers would burn old oil in 50-gallon drums, would smolder all day long, leaving a toxic odor. The whole neighborhood, through the whole neighborhood, sorry. 2 years ago, I had enough of this and filed a complaint at the township office. Obviously, there were several bylaw infractions, as this was a vacant lot. Still there's machinery, tires and junk, still there, nothing cleaned up. Now we have a complete industrial sawmill. No permits, no rules, a complete free-for-all. This operation's grown and now is this decimated our community, but I feel the whole situation could have been averted if the bylaws would have been enforced when my complaint was submitted. What is the point of having bylaws if you can't or will not enforce them? This is the reason why this irresponsible corporation is running rampant. The township and the previous council have a poor track record with bylaw enforcement. The system that the town has in place does not work. This weakness and inaction prompted people to take advantage of the situation, knowing that there is no repercussion. This corporation cares nothing about anyone or anything. This property is a black mark on our town. Future development in this area is impossible if this sawmill continues. I have a vacant lot adjacent to this sawmill. There is another vacant lot across the road that other people own. There was going to be a build for someone on one of those lots, but now this is impossible. The hardship, stress, loss of enjoyment, loss of equity has taken a huge toll on all of us. The noise, the diesel fumes, and the dust goes on day and night. And, anytime example. Easter Monday, I looked at 5:40 in the morning because they started operating. Quite often it started at 6 a.m. and all day for at least 12 hours. Completely overwhelming night. Right in my backyard. I don't think anyone can understand how difficult this is unless you live it. After a long day at work, you should be able to go home, relax, enjoying your property. This is not the case in this area. Sometimes I don't want to go home. I'm in a horrible situation. Even if I wanted to move to get away from this, I can't because nobody wants to buy a home next to something like this. And I can't believe the authorities allow this to happen. Thank you for your letter, Kathy.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mike?
Go ahead, okay.
Yeah.
The most important thing that I found is because we went through this, all the information, all the evidence for all of this is with the bylaw officer. Our worry is that, just from talking to some of the counselors and that, they didn't seem to have that information. We just didn't want you guys to make this serious, decisions on this, just until you had all the information. And that's why, I had some of the counselors come down. You honestly have to see this. It's everyone that's seen this has been shocked, and you don't have the evidence. When I get, at this point, you should know everything. Like, everything is there. Does everybody have the information that the bylaw officer had? They got all the videos, just the impact it's having on us, the financial, every single thing there. I got a great big huge letters here. It's all been sent. But then, I just feel a disconnect when I'm talking. I just don't think the information's been passed. Because when I get questions, like, the Kathy got a question, like, is it, what is it? Is it really just annoying? It's like, it's hard to take. We've had to repeat and repeat and repeat, and again, over and over and over again. It's like no one's absorbing it, or it's not just noise. And how do you not know at this point? So, with all the counselors and everyone involved in making this huge decision, if they actually sat down and listened to, or collected the evidence from the bylaw officer and actually looked at everything, do they know the amount of money that we're losing, that the hardships we're going through? Do they know it all? Like, do they, it's a lot. They have a lot there. Like, there's a lot of videos, there's everything. Really, it's just, it's just showing what's going on. And, like, you cannot imagine it until you're there. Even now, when you go there, you still can't get it. You gotta understand, all summer long. Right now, you basically got one guy working there too, so you got one or two machines kind of clunking away, right? It's winter. I'm telling you, this was crazy, crazy, crazy. You're talking tractor trailers rolling in there 3 or 4 at a time. You've got them, You know, you have the big machine that unloads the logs, all at the same time. Then you've got a machine that feeds, another machine that feeds the logs onto this conveyor belt, I guess. Then it goes into the saw, which is about 6 feet in diameter, and it goes zing, zing, probably about every 5 seconds. Then you got the tumbler. I don't know what's worse. The tumbler, if you're familiar with it. It's like taking a sledgehammer. Every 2 seconds, it cuts all the wood and it's just bang, it's overwhelming. Bang, bang, bang. Then you got the loader, an industrial loader that holds about 3 yards of, gravel or whatever in one shot. You get the reverse beacon. It freaking terrorizes. It's got to the point where we're all like, I don't know if you got it, but it plays on your psyche. It's so loud and so long. Now to make it worse, like there's never been one single attempt. Like I'm talking, I wish I could just give you one little wee thing where someone cared. I'm telling you, not one single thing. All the time, early in the morning, I got, pulling up, no rules whatsoever. And it's relentless. It goes from whenever they feel like starting, right? And until 7, 8 at night, it's just constant. It's 7 days a week. And like I say, the days 5:30 in the morning, probably, I don't know, dozens and dozens of days where it's early. Like, not that matters to us. Like, it just goes, it's just an example of the brain. They just don't care. Like, nothing cares. They just don't care. So that's the main thing is I want to make sure that you just be informed. We really, we've been fair. I know your restrictions. I know it's a hard job. I know that, I don't know any of you personally. So I don't judge anything that anyone said or even in the past or past decisions, nothing. We're just focused on this. And we feel you have to have the information. Really with this one, you have to go down there. But times it by about 10 because everything's covered up, all the junk, everything's just covered up now, and nothing's running, right? Well, now, of course, the last few days, they move stuff around and that, but it moves. It's right in front of my house. Like it gets to the point where you have to stand it. You have to witness it. We're blue collar people. My grandfather was a lawyer. Okay, that's what we are. We have no problem. I've never made a complaint in my life. I've always, including these guys, I've always gone over to my neighbor, tried to solve it. That didn't work. But we're not just, making it a frivolous thing here. It's a real serious matter.
No, we realize.
It really is, right?
And I knew from the time I discussed it with Kathy that it was a real problem.
So
Kathy's not a whiner.
No, so when she made that reference to the oil burning all day long, I think you were there one day. You just had, actually, I believe you actually witnessed it. You went there like, what the heck is that, right?
Well,
and you end up going like, it's a burning thing of oil. This went on all the time, right? Not now, right? But this is how it's led up to this. Knowing, you can't have toxic oil burning all day long. My renter went over there, we rented it out for a couple of years. He went over there, banging on the door, trying to get them to respond, Nothing. Again, that was before, right? But it just evolved into this. We didn't say nothing. They had a fire there, my renter was there, they lit this great big huge bonfire in the middle of the day. You couldn't see the road. It smoked my house completely out. Like I'm talking, this guy wanted to move, it cost me $800 to rent ozone machines to try to save it. I had to paint again, believe it or not, at the time I didn't know who owned it. I'm just like, okay, I didn't even complain. So we're not whiners, right? We put up with the speeding, the J breaks, what I'm trying to get the point is we're not people that we live on the road, we get it. But this is just out of control and just way beyond, what we can tolerate. I just want to make sure that you have the information. Did you go, have you all, have you seen the videos? Have you seen my complaints? Like, what I'm going through? Do you know how much money I'm losing?
Yeah.
It's not just me, right? There's 6 families and 8 properties here. They're all there. It's not just me. We're all together on this. It's not just me.
Well, how come there's only a complaint from you and Kathy?
Well, you can start, actually, I can they can send you.
I received 2 more, yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
I had went out there, Mike had invited you, and I had to go up there, and when we were there, other people had stopped in too, there was quite a few people that, there was other people that were concerned, maybe not comfortable filing a complaint or coming forward, but I can assure you there's people there, and Mike is right, you have to go out there and see it. you know, even for myself, just hearing about it, I thought, well, you know, go up and see it, and you can see the stress in the families. And there's no way anybody here or in this room would want to live there. There's no way. There's no regard for neighbors. Now, is that property zoned rural residential or is it zoned commercial?
Rural.
Rural.
Okay. So it's obvious it's a commercial operation going on there.
It's a level 2 industrial
What do
operation.
we need to do to stop this? Like,
That's what our solicitor has, we've dealt with in
Right.
closed session with our
Right,
solicitor.
correct.
That's your option.
Yeah,
right.
we're not,
But it almost
It's-
seems like it
But
would be right.
redundant here. And comments made in public that we've made a decision are totally incorrect. I mean,
No, but when you talked to Maxine the other day, maybe she took the wrong impression, but whatever was said there was more or less that, I don't know whether you're making a deal now, it was insinuated, we thought, that, you were making a deal with them to run this thing from 9 to 5.
absolutely
And
not.
then there was also a reference to all of this issue, to compare it to a lawnmower running all day. And I'm gonna tell you, we don't have a bunch of videos, we just got what we showed you. It's not a lawnmower running all day, this is a real serious, the decibel level is off the chart. The fumes, the dust, you gotta live it. I can't even open my doors. I can't open my windows. I got video here showing me open, you have, honestly, I swear to you, you gotta look at it. You have to be there. And right now, you're only seeing a little fraction. And then I have counselors, they're like, you want me to show you more? They're like, I've seen enough. And honestly, you haven't seen nothing. You haven't even seen it when all the tractor trailers are rolling in, and, you know. And then I got, and then I have to put up with some, a couple of weeks ago, I opened my front door at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I got some guy cussing at me, asking me what my effing problem is and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. So where does it end here, right? I just feel like I'm all restricted. I have to go by every single little wee law we have, and there's a lot of them, right? But yeah, look over there, what do I do? We're stuck. We're really, really in the jam here. We really are. My properties, so my daughter, I don't know if you know, my daughter just purchased the property on the highway there. And then there's a vacant lot, which I have, which is 4 acres. And then I have Maxine's house there right in front of this. And then I also purchased a place across the road. I have all these properties, so, if you want to see some, I have every single penny I've ever, 40 years, I'm a labor guy. I didn't get inherited, daddy didn't give me a business. I put every dime I have in there. In fact, the one house that I bought, was drug addicts living in it. It had been vacant for many, many years. And I brought that thing, I think you guys sold it for $15,000 for taxes. It's like a brand new home now. I sold it. I took a $50,000 hit on it because of this, right? And it's heartbreaking. Like, think about it. You guys are gonna be 20. The neighborhood has improved. I spent $250,000 on a couple of homes. But the neighbors are like, right on. It's good for everybody. You have to understand that. Now you've got a piece of property there now that welcoming, the community. It looks good. It was actually. You should have seen it with drug addicts living in it. My neighbors are going, what the heck, right? So anyways, I took a $50,000 hit on that. I had people looking at it, I was fixing it up. One guy was going to buy it off me. They just looked at that and they're like, what? Anyway, I'm just going to do this quick so I don't want to ramble on you. The one across the road, I have a 4-acre property that I purchased there. It's all giant. It's one of the only green spots you got right in town. 4 acres of, I'm talking 80-year-old pine trees. So we purchased it. So you picture this, right? You got in the corner my daughter, my son. We're supposed to be building a home there in the next few years. Us, right? And that was our plan. You cannot build nothing. You cannot build nothing on that lot. You can't put a $400,000, $300,000 house across the junkyard, right? Or let alone this. So we're really, really in deep trouble here. I can't sell my home. Nobody wants to buy it. I talked to your building inspector about I was going to build a big shop there on the one piece of property. I'm supposed to start it next year. I don't even have the confidence to put 5 more cents into my house. I can't. You understand that. You can't have a nice house beside this. You can't. Not even close. Like, I'm going to lose my shirt on this. I'm going to lose at least $100,000. And I'm hoping then I'm gonna lose 100,000. Around this property, maybe not by the assessed value, but in the 8 pieces of property, the actual value is close to $2 million, okay? And then we're all they're not hiding, they're coming forward, right? They absolutely are, they have registered their complaints, they're in the process,
Okay.
you know what I mean? They
That's
absolutely
good.
are, right? This piece of property across from us, it's worth about 20,000 if it wasn't, it's worth nothing now. But so you're really looking at a massive, difference here. And then the tax dollars, if I put a brand new home on there, and I will, right? Man, you're collecting taxes on that. Webb was in trouble. Every time you see one of these broken down places, or we can't afford another dump, honest to God, it's the people get discouraged and people give up. It's hard to take. It's hard to take. Exactly when the drug addicts move in, and if I can't go in there and fix the home, if I can't put the money into it because of the surrounding area, which I want to keep doing this, I can't. I just took a big hit, right? And I can't fix one place up in Webber. I can't do nothing. You know what I mean? I don't have the confidence, especially with these people running around, trailers again. I'm not going to get into it, but the bylaw situation, it's just not under control.
It's broken. I got you.
Yeah, the system, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the system.
it makes it very difficult.
Sure, and that's gonna
change.
And my conversation with Maxine, all I said was that if we could at least remedy the noise problem and get it to within some decent hours.
There is no decent
But
hours.
it's sounding to me.
Absolutely, we'd rather have
The only solution here is for it to be gone.
Yeah, so my main thing is, so I know I only have so much time here, so what I'd like to just focus on is the zoning, all right? This is the key. When I purchased the property, I know how to do these things. I always do my due diligence. I came into the office here and I went and checked the zoning on it, right? You're gonna check, because they were over there, it wasn't too bad, right? I could tolerate it. You've seen it. Whatever, they're kind of off to the side there, and whatever, right? But, I was worried, about what they could do there, and when I was told, still to this day, it's a rural property. So, to me, it's 3 or 4 levels, he's not even close. So, even if it was commercial, right? Even if let's just say it was commercial, it's not industrial. It's not industrial. You still wouldn't warrant having it. Nothing, that thing there would be illegal no matter what the zoning is. Just the way it's done, we've researched it. There's no setbacks. There's just nothing. It's not even close. So when I got this letter, anyway, what ended up happening was no one that I've ever seen has looked at this and had any excuse for it or thought we were exaggerating. I'm straight. I don't exaggerate. I'm not lying to you. You can fact check anything on me. I'll sit here anytime. I don't exaggerate. You can't really exaggerate this. But everyone that's seen it insisted, yeah, this has to go, especially with the behavior, right? Just a free for all. The stuff's, it's a junkyard. It's a junkyard. It's toxic. It's got a layer of, and they did the highway out here last year. They were trying to get the entire, they were gonna have a mountain there 50 feet high. So I'll step back. I went and spoke to the gentleman. We had a conversation. We agreed to disagree, right? He told me exactly how this was gonna play out. And you know what? I laughed at. And here we are. He told me exactly. I spoke to him about, and at the time I hadn't mentioned it to him. He told me exactly the way it was gonna play out. Nothing was gonna happen. He was gonna bury us in this, and you guys wouldn't have the, whatever you wanna call it, to go through with it. And it's a joke. He said, you're wrong. It's zoned properly. And he just laughed at it. We agreed to disagree. And I left there. And then every other person that we talked to, especially the bylaw guys, been like, this is very serious, very, very serious, right? It's got to go, and there's no excuse for it. We're going to put in, the most important thing to us was what we were hanging on to. That's why we didn't bother anyone. We weren't pestering, right? We tried not to. The odd time, it was getting a little bit heated, but we were trying to be very respectful. Our whole thing was that they were going to put in this injunction. That was our only hope, right? The injunction will go forward to stop this operation now. Now, I understand how things work. So it should have been stopped, and then everyone has their say. He has an opportunity to do what I did, and everyone on the planet does. You go in, okay, you need the zoning confirmation, right? You need building permits. There's a whole process that you guys know even more than me as you go through. You cannot walk in there, even if it was zone industrial, you can't just walk in and just do whatever the heck you want. And that's exactly what's going on here. I can't even stress how bad it is, like the free-for-all. There's no rules. So when I call the bylaw officer, let's say hypothetically, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the last 8 times, he don't go there, he don't do nothing, there's nothing done. So no one's checking into it. These big fines that are supposed to be implemented when you go to court type of thing, like a huge fine you got, right? And then it carries on each day. You have to have some kind of deterrent. Why would this situation, I think, if anybody, any of you's looked at it really closely, is a 10 out of 10, and it warrants a 10 out of 10 on the punishment. To this day, there's not, why would you stop? Why would you stop something? They're making lots of money, and it's rolling ahead, and there's not one thing that's been done, not one penny. There's been not one fine, nothing. It's the same as it was before. The oil cans that you've seen there, and that were ordered to be picked up, this letter here that I have, it says right here, I don't know if you guys, well, you obviously have the letter, I can just read part of it. I'll just go over this really quickly. If you're not familiar with it, because some of the councilors, so this is basically just a letter. This is back in April 13th, right? So we were told at the time, not by you guys, but from the bylaw officer, oh yeah, a few weeks, this is a no-brainer, but this is going to court, this is going to be stopped. It attempts to be stopped, right? And then, so that was April 13th, so it just says here they inspected the property, on a road, and it just says it indicates there's an industrial operation has been established on this vacant rural property without permission. No zoning confirmation letter was sought, no building permits applied for, and then before structures were placed and used on this property began. And then they went on to say they say yes, we can do it. You say no, they can't. The industrial operation established would not be permitted on a commercial property. There are 4 potential ways to have identified where the use of this property could be defined or categorized. Number 1, a logging operation, not permitted in any zone. Number 2, a class 2 industrial, only permitted in a medium industrial or rural industrial zone. Transportation depot or truck terminal, only permitted in a medium industrial zone. Or a sawmill or planing mills, permitted in rural industrial zones only. Then it goes on to mention, obviously the name, they were served with documents on April 13th at the site and given until May 13th to voluntary cease operations, or make an application to attempt to legalize the operation, which, that's what you do, right? That has to be done. There's no other way. You can't just skip all these processes, right? And then it just says, anyways, I'll just stay in the talk. They say it was lawful. The last thing here. The township cannot tolerate this operation to continue and have been instructed by council to seek an injunction in the Superior Court to stop operation of this industrial operation as soon as possible. So the way I read it is your council told you to seek this injunction, and that should have been done on May 13th. All the junk's there, nothing's been done. In fact, now you've got a layer of old asphalt. I phoned in the middle of the day there after about 30 or 40 loads were dumped. You have to see that, you know what I mean? And then now they just spread it all over to cover up all that oil and whatever you want to call it. It's ready. Your bylaw officer went in there before all this. And I asked him about it because I've never gone over there. I've only been on this property once to speak to him. I've never set my foot on that property. And the bylaw inspector just said, he went over with his little camera there, you know what I mean? And just said, man, there's just fuel everywhere, right? It's all over the place. And then now, like I say, there's a layer of that old nasty, it's all mixed together now, right? It's a complete junkyard mess, and it has to go. Who would want this in their community? I would be appalled if I were you. I really would. The way this has gone, I would be appalled. I'd want this out of there. It's not a question mark. It's not a neighbor having a little issue with another neighbor. You know, this is a serious matter, and it hasn't been taken seriously in our opinion, because May 13th was a long time ago.
Well, you shouldn't say it hasn't been taken seriously. We have
It
lawyers,
appears.
we have lawyers involved. And
Well, the lawyer here says that, he says right here, I've been instructed by counsel to seek an injunction to stop this operation immediately.
whose lawyer is that?
I don't know, this is the letter I got, this is the letter I got from, Bylaw, like, this was sent to people in question.
So that's Richard's opinion.
Richard's.
That's not instruction.
By a lawyer. Who signed it?
This is from Richard.
Yeah, so
Oh, so this is just nothing.
This-
So what, so he must,
this
this
is-
is just nothing?
that's Richard's recommendation
To
Yeah.
council.
to council.
Yeah, that's
Or
what
to-
he recommended.
Okay, well, that's not what it
Whoever.
says here. That's not what it says here. So the township cannot tolerate this operation continuing to happen. He's saying that you were instructed by council to seek an injunction to stop this thing immediately. This is what he was telling us the whole time, right?
Is there,
It's right on the paper.
I think that was
That's why we were
Richard's
hoping.
solution to the problem that he recommended.
sounds like you're coming, yeah.
So that's
That's what.
without,
No, it's not.
saying anymore.
Yeah, it's very misleading.
So we were kind of like, you know, hopeful, right? We thought, okay, it's rolling on, but we understand you can only do what you can do. Like, you know, there is a process, and the legal system is not quick. But I just, when I see this, I didn't feel like it's going along as quick as possible, right? That was our only hope. We felt confident that any judge in the world would see this, unless there's some little legal complication somewhere, it would have been shut down. Absolutely, even now, like, you know.
Well, it's far from over. Like,
I know, well, you know what, we've been trying, I don't listen to hearsay. And people, and you know what it's like.
yeah, well,
I'm
I'm
not
hearing
trying
a
not-
lot of hearsay in the
I'm
last
really
week
trying not
there,
to, right?
and I
And it's
don't like
hard, right? When I hear someone, no, you did go, compare it to a lawnmower.
No.
So I'm just saying.
That choice of words.
Okay.
A lawnmower
It
when
just struck a
you're
chord,
right in the
right? Because it's
backyard.
not true,
Okay.
right? That's all it was, right? Like, it's a downplay of my
I just
situation.
asked how you got that information,
What's that?
about the lawnmower revenue?
Well, she just mentioned it to my wife, Max.
I had a conversation with
Oh,
her
okay,
on
okay.
the phone.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
said, listen, if we could at
Okay.
least get the noise
I
under
thought some of
control.
our closed sessions.
No.
Okay,
No.
just wanted to clear that.
No, I said if we could at least get the noise under control, it would be a start.
Yeah, that would be.
And I said if, you know, the thing is, if it's during regular business hours, and I said, well, I guess would be like having somebody mowing the lawn all day long.
No.
It's worse.
No. This is,
My assumption, my apology.
thank you.
And
No.
this is soon to be a year, come up a year in April, and the way it's worded, and the interpretation is, the township cannot tolerate this operation to continue and have been instructed by
Yeah.
council to seek an injunction in the Superior Court to stop the operation. It's not implying his recommendation.
So that's why we were kind of, we're getting a little angry because we felt that you had the ability to do it, and you're just not, you're stalling, you're waiting. That's why, we've been getting a little bit upset here, right?
I mean, bottom line, it's a resident, so the way the bylaw is written now, so someone who's living in a residential rural zone, say if I decide, well, you know what, I've got lots of trees, and I start an operation, and I start bringing in equipment, at what point would the township intervene and say, hey, wait a minute, like, you got what appears to be a commercial or industrial? Pardon?
and there's probably a complaint.
Well, you know what,
I mean,
sorry to interrupt. I don't
unfortunately.
think in the bylaw, I'm not no lawyer, I don't think there's room for compromise. I don't think, when you say, we'll do 9 to 5, I don't understand, I don't think there's room for compromise. The bylaw is a bylaw, is it not?
That business shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
It's quite obvious, right? Like, no one, anyone's invited to come, right? Have a look, but you're not, remember, if you come, you're seeing someone that's been warned for a month, and it's not even a quarter of it, it's nothing. And if you see the rest of it doesn't even stop there. It's not even just the mill, okay? It's not. You've got all the old tractor trailers there. You got welding trucks, machines out there doing service work on them all day. There's big, it's just all the operation they have in the bush comes down there and gets serviced. The machines, half of them, I have a video if you want to see it, they spew out commissions like you've never seen. They shouldn't even be allowed to be started. So when it gets going, honest to God, like, you're at your house, when the wind comes your way, like, you know, in my bedroom, sometimes my eyes are watering. Like, honest to God, it's in my house when I'm trying to watch TV. I can't even watch TV inside the house. So we didn't want to, all we had was these little short clips. The only reason why I even did these little short clips, because I realized that no one was doing anything as far as the bylaw officer. He wasn't coming out, he wasn't doing anything. So when we go to court, because, you know, he said it was gonna end up in court, so I just felt, you know, okay, so it's been running every day, I want a fine every day, I'm gonna lobby the judge to give a big fine every day, because what do we have gone through? But what are we gonna do if we can't prove it? So all I've done is just, and what you're seeing is just little wee clips for 30 seconds of what we have to deal with, right?
I did see the video clips as well, and yeah, if you don't see them, it is not easy to grasp.
Oh yeah, it's hard to, I admit it's hard to get the
When
big
I
pictures.
watched the videos, I went, oh boy.
And that's-
It's almost like
there's a
what you
lot.
would use, on a prisoner of war to get them, what's it called, like that?
Oh.
No, just, it's sound
Torture.
assault, like, because of it, it's almost a sound assault, and I can see it having,
Your bar-
huge impacts.
The bylaw officer,
Mhm.
the original ones, he has a whole pile of.
I sent at least 40.
And then I've got a bunch, and the
But yeah,
thing
you
is, this
don't
is,
see
you gotta
them,
remember,
it's hard
we
to
work,
grasp.
right? We're
It's
gone all day.
not-
This isn't us going out there and picking the worst of the worst.
No.
This is me waking up in the morning, going out the door and just going click, click for 1 minute, just to get a quick shot. This isn't like, you know, me cherry picking or going out there and kind of making it look bad, right? You don't have to make it
I
look
didn't
bad.
think it.
And the vibrations were visible in the video of their home, like, that's the other thing too, so, like, of some of the
Yeah.
clip, there was one, I think it was just, I'm gonna watch TV, which is not physically possible to do.
When you
Well,
take,
if it helps, okay, I was over there one day, and I have an app on my phone that measures decibels.
Yes.
Okay? Standing at his front door, okay, which is distance, was 110 decibels. Now, if that was an industrial plant,
Hearing protection.
okay, you're in for immediate ear damage. Okay, but it's-
so what you get is a constant stuff, right? So if you just picture, you got everything running, you got all the diesel, all the machines with the throttles going, right? The reverse beacon, you can hear how far, she can hear this going on at her house.
I'm at the
How
end.
far are you, a kilometer?
I don't know. I'm
Honest to God.
at the end of Maitland Field.
Right, you can hear it, but then there's a lot to it, there's a lot more, and then probably the biggest thing is when that 4-yard bucket or whatever it is, when it dumps that wood into a dump truck or a trailer, the first time I heard it, I swear to you, I ran to my window, I thought there was a collision. It's on the video, when they dump that in there, man, it's just, you've got to experience it, and it's all day, every day, there's even another. If you look at the equipment now, there's another conveyor belt there. So hey, why not do 2? How about 3 of them? This could be tripled, quadrupled, whatever. They cannot be allowed to run this in there legally. An injunction to allow them legally to run this thing from any, at all, right, would be illegal. It would mess us up as well. Then where do we go? What do we do here? We can't. This has to go to a judge and be stopped. Now, after that point in time, everyone gets their say. Do what I did. I went through the process. I tried a rezoning. It is what it is, right? I did it the proper way. And the decision went against me. And there's nothing there. You don't reverse this. The worst part, in my opinion, the worst thing you can do, it's already bad. People are out there and they get it. You know what everyone told me? Like, people from out, they said, Mike, what are you doing? I said, just do it. That's what everyone thinks. Just do it, right? What are they gonna do?
Yeah.
You're gonna do it, you're gonna sit there for 2.5 years, and then maybe you win, maybe you lose. Now, the people are watching all this, even the people are totally law-abiding, and they're saying, even my neighbors are saying, I'm not doing this. Why would I do it? Piss on it, we'll just do whatever we want, and that's where we've gone, right? We're going into this thing where even the people normally that would be responsible are looking around them and saying, what, I can't have a chicken in my backyard, but the guy can live in a trailer right in the middle of town. So I'm not gonna get off topic, but we have a real issue. We have a chance right now, first of all, in my opinion, to let these companies or whoever wants to, this is an exploitation, it's not done the proper way, right? There's nothing here for the community, it's all negative. A message should go through right now. Massey, this whole township, we're not your dumping ground. We're not your dumping ground. This is not somewhere you can just come and laugh us off. We can't just wave 50 grand in the air and you're gonna go running because you don't wanna fight us. It's all principle and it's a future. I don't think you can afford not to fight this. If that goes there, I can't do nothing. What am I gonna do? Think about it. A 10% loss on our properties is 200,000. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna lose a lot more than 10%. I already have. Like, we're talking a lot of money here, right? And I can't live there. I'm not running. My tail between my legs, believe you me. This is gonna take a long time, right? I've talked to attorneys. We have a case here. We do. We have to fight. We can't just lose everything we have. We're not running.
Yeah, but listen, we have attorneys too, and it's far from over. We haven't made a decision. We're still.
I know, I'm just worried though.
Yeah,
I'm worried about it. To me, I don't understand all the legal parts of it, but as far as what should happen, I'd come to my home and sit there and tell me I'm wrong, and I'll listen to you, like, I have people driving around I used to live up in Towel Drive, unfortunately, I sold my house there a couple of years ago, right? And they're coming down and they're saying to me, how do you do it? What the heck is that? I'm going, we're not doing it. Last year, the whole summer, I was on stress leave for my job. So where do I couldn't even work, okay? I'm on my job for 32 years, okay? Guess where I gotta go? I go home. I couldn't go home. I ran to my camp every friggin' day because I was woken up in the morning at my bed, which I still am, right on my bed every friggin' day, right? Every day. And this is nothing, you gotta see it. I can't even go to my home. I can barely function on my job. It's a serious matter. We're all in the same boat. We're all to the point now, we've had enough. One of my neighbors is just getting over, has a medical issue, is at home now trying to recover. And I went and talked to her last night. She's just like, oh my God, like, it's a real problem. We've lived up here I've been here 20 years. All our neighbors have been here forever. We don't have any problem with we are blue collar people. We're not just making a little point. This operation has to go in an industrial zone. It's got to go over the law, right? But they're a very important part of these laws are a very important part of our economy here. This township should make some plans for the future and set aside areas, maybe. We have a vast area. We don't have to have this right inside our town. But we should have spots for them to go, maybe, whatever, facility to go. You can't mix it in with all the residential area. It just doesn't fit. It can't work. It can't work on so many levels. All I want anyone to do is come down to my house, even when it's at 10% going, even if it's not going, walk around. It is a dump.
We know what's going on.
Okay.
We can't just walk in and show them the door. He owns the property. What?
What is the issue with getting an injunction to temporarily stop him from working until it goes to court? Let me tell you, okay, if you can get the injunction, it says really good things about the case. If you can't get the injunction, then guess what? You may lose the case.
Well,
right?
We're looking
But
at
at least go for an injunction. Let's solve the problem.
I just rather just do what you're gonna do. If you do what you're gonna do, because that's the way we feel now. We're just, I can't go over this 1,000 times. I just want to be like everyone else and just hand it over to my lawyer. I've had enough. Again, it's very stressful. You know what I mean? They either have to rezone it, they have to go through the procedures, and then those bylaws have to be enforced, or else our township's a joke.
Well, there's nothing I hate to hear worse than, oh, you're living in the township, you can do whatever you want in the township. And
Well,
I don't want to hear that. And that was the first thing for me. But the legalities are different. So we're working on it, and it might take more than our lawyers to work on it. We'll see.
I don't understand what you mean by that. It may take more than your lawyers to work on it.
I can't discuss specifics. There's a lot of gray areas in this case. That's all.
Be very careful, please, what you say. Your words are far-reaching.
Yeah.
Just, don't say nothing to no one, no information, nothing.
I don't share that.
No, I'm not saying to give out confidential information, I'm just saying, even just little things, even that, I'm telling you, when I heard that lawnmower thing, I didn't sleep for 2 days, I'm just telling you. I just felt that all of a sudden,
No,
I'm whining about all this and it's reduced to, you know, a lawnmower. That's all it was, right? Just be careful, honestly, it's a big deal. If you wanna come down, if you want any other information, we'll give it to you. You know, this is where we're at. But please, as soon
I
as
think-
possible, do whatever you
I
can.
think the information's clear, man.
Okay.
We
We're
have
not
lawyers,
waiting 4 or 5 years.
we have lawyers waiting, no, we're not gonna wait 4 or 5
Just
years.
saying.
But if they were allowed to get an injunction, this can be, this does, we have different, I've seen other things go on, not here, but a long time. This can be dragged out when, sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah,
I've seen
sure.
things like this go on for
Sure it
years,
can
and
be
years
dragged
and years and years. We don't have years.
Sure it can be dragged out. That's not, we're not looking to drag it out.
No, but even, you know, the opposite side may try to drag it. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer. It just seems, I feel like I've been doing this for 5 years already. It's like torture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're stuck. I can't do nothing. My daughter, they just moved up here from the city, 400 grand for that house, right? They're not getting 400 grand for that house now. They're in a pan. They moved up here to come up, like me describing, nice people, easy going, quiet life. Honestly, God, we're broiled. We don't want any confrontation or anything with anybody. I want to go fishing, man. I don't want to be here. But our backs are up against the wall. Now we're stuck right in a corner. We can't do anything. We have no choice except to curl up in that corner or come out and fight. That's our only choice. We have no choice. We're losing everything, honestly. We really are. I appreciate the people coming out. At least it showed, gave us a little boost. At least you care. Even the counselors that couldn't make it out, I didn't have any issues. There was reasons. I never had an issue with anyone. Everyone kind of, I think, sympathized with us, and it was all great. But you know what? As you all know, it means nothing unless you act on it. But that's all we're asking.
But the message is loud and clear. Everybody here at the table's heard it.
Yes.
Something that's been discussed in the last month. And as we said, we have legal advice on it ongoing, so.
And I don't know how it works, but why would you not punish someone like this? Like, if it was within the law, you have to get evidence. You can't, when I see him here talking with this dog that's in his yard, he drives out here the first day. Well, don't you think maybe that you should come out and do something? They're not just the mill, everything else, the 4 hours, everything. Like, there's multiple infractions here, and it's just not happening, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate you listening to us. Don't forget about us.
I think it was nice that you came.
We've never forgotten.
I think seeing things on paper and we see the facts and you see it written out and it's written out well and it's,
There seems to be a little doubt on whether I'm the only guy here.
It's
so,
shared well and it's documented, but we
It's been
don't
sent in
see
the email.
human, you don't see the human.
Absolutely, I
connection.
understand that.
We're getting our documents, we're getting our data, and you read it, but you're reading it as dry data.
Oh, I know.
To have you come in tonight and share this human element and the impact is more. You know what I mean? It's more.
Sure.
Can you, talking to Brian, with your TV, can you do more than just a snapshot? Can you, let's say, graph 8 hours? Because if it does go record, you just can't say it's loud.
Well, I understand that.
I got video.
That's all.
No,
Yeah.
it's almost.
I understand, and that's why.
It's not high level, I'm just getting evaluation of certain things. Depends where they are in the property.
Once it's gone, it doesn't come back.
I'm gonna look into all that anyway.
I couldn't
I'm
remember.
in the process of doing whatever I can, right? So, yeah, as well. But I don't think, that's absolutely helpful, but when you see it, and even if a judge sees it, I don't think you could really deny it, absolutely a number on it, or, yeah. But, it's a little late now, right? But it's a little late, like everything's down, moved and kind of calmed down, and, it's not the way it was before, right? They moved it to there's been some adjustments.
Yeah, they moved it closer to my place, right?
That's what it is. It is, once it's coming back there, it just happens.
Problem hasn't gone
No,
away. We
that's.
understand.
All right, anyways, we do appreciate you, especially coming in on a Sunday, taking your time to come. And,
That's what I think.
yeah. And if anyone else wants, I would still like to speak to any other counselor to show them, physically, when you're seeing my property and you see everything, it does open your eyes a bit too. Just seeing what's not gonna get developed there and what's useless all because of one piece of property, I think it really takes things into perspective.
But Mike, it's not just us, there's 7 other families.
No, I did, yeah, it's not just.
It was, yeah, and probably planted a lot more than 700 back.
I'm
700 families, yeah, they're willing to, yeah, you can hear this from the highway. Anyways, we're not gonna go over and over it, thank you very much.
Good, thank you for
Appreciate
coming.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
And this is the way to do it. You're doing it, there's one right track.
Yeah, we got, hey, you have to accept the process, like Ann told me, right? You have to follow, whether you like it or not, right? You have to go through the process. We all have to go through the process, right?
We've only been here a month.
Pardon me?
We've only been here a month and
Oh, I know, that's why I understand that as well.
we are addressing your issue.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Good night. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
I had one thing I was gonna go into closed session, but we can wait till next time. I don't have anything else. Oh. Unless anyone else has something, I don't have that.
Anything, anybody, before we adjourn? I just.
We're still in open.
We never went
We never
closed.
closed. No, we never closed. And you know what? We didn't break the rules.
No, we didn't.
We're okay.
No.
Nobody, and I know it got long-winded and went on, but we had to let
It
them.
was an emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that. I see that.
We didn't get to
It's
the.
unfortunate. I made a bad choice of words when I spoke to Maxine, but anyway, the problem's still there. We know that. Now, maybe this will help shape our decision on it. Like, we discussed it a few weeks back and,
It's rural what? Is it rural
It's
residential?
rural. Zoning is rural.
So can you do what you want in rural?
No, it's a little broader than residential or that, but I mean, it doesn't list commercial as a permitted use in the rural zone.
I've got, correct, we didn't get into public works at all, and, is there any updated info on your bridge?
Oh, sorry, yes, I did talk to Dave
Oh,
Spacek
you did?
today,
Yeah.
and it's probably not going to happen. The biologist is saying that it's a
Wetland.
cold water stream,
Yeah.
cold water stream, not a warm, so WSP says that, no, that's a warm water, but then if something happens, the contractor could be on the hook if something happens. So, it's most likely the permit will be from June to August for the work that'll be his window.
Have to rebid?
No, we have a contract and we may have to just do a change order to extend the date of completion because he won't be able to complete by April, whatever the date was in the contract. Yeah.
Well, and what if there's overruns, or what if he says, what if people?
Well, he has a $50,000 contingency in his budget, so he's got that to play with.
Okay.
And then if there's additional, then it's a change order and we have $50,000 to play with because he's under budget. So
Okay.
we can still, I think there's easily still within budget that we have and without overrun, it shouldn't.
Well, there'll be no need for a bypass.
No, exactly, it
No,
eliminates that
I think we're
completely,
saving.
then we're saving that. It eliminates the concern of going through Pleasant Valley and just
Yeah.
continue it, so
In the summer.
in the summer, it'll happen in the summer,
Yeah, you
so
have lots of ways around it.
kind of like, yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah, you've
Pleasant
got,
Valley, that's.
you've got Pleasant Valley, you've got River Valley, right?
You got
River
Fox Lake
Valley.
Road if you want.
Yeah.
You got River Valley.
Yeah, River
There's
Valley.
lots of ways
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
So,
The main, it's better be Pleasant Valley, that's fine.
Sunday afternoon.
I was just gonna ask,
But-
like, do we have like a firm date when you start to the date of completion? Will we have that in place when he has a contract? Because I was talking to a few contractors, making calls around and not giving information, but just asking the
Yeah.
processes. And they say, like, if I give a completion date of this date, every day that after that, they're penalized up to $1,500 a day.
if that's written into the contract.
Yeah, are we gonna have something like that? Because
Well, probably not, because we've delayed, or the permits have been delayed. This contract was supposed to,
once he decides to start, like, the figure from 2 to 4 months is a really
Yeah.
broad, and then what if it goes 6 months, 7 months?
well, he will only have the time period to do some of the work within that window that M&R says he can work in that creek, right?
So M&R
So,
takes that
yeah.
work.
And I think, like I said, I think it'll be a change order to extend the date of completion, which will probably be, I would think, end of September
Okay.
or October, so that he can get everything that's in the scope of work completed. And then that's, if he goes beyond, then those penalties, if they're written in the contract, would come into play then.
Yeah.
But because the contract was done in December, thinking it would be done by the end of April, I mean, it's not his fault that
So
the
we have
work permits haven't been.
provisions in that contract then.
Well, we have,
Or do we
we
have
have
to?
the ability to amend and do a change order, right? If council agrees and the contractor, it's a mutual agreement to, well, we're gonna have to extend it, cause there's
Yeah,
no way
sure.
in heck he can
Yeah.
complete it before he's allowed to work in
Start.
it. Yeah, right, so, yeah. So we have to, just extend the
But
deadline.
I'd like to see like a firm date when he can start.
Oh, it will be. It will be,
And then
yeah.
after that, like, say,
Once we get, once we get all the details of when they can start work and when he is, then it's, so many days within it. But yeah, I'll make sure Dave Spotcheck has that.
When this came up for bid, did he know that it was gonna be a winter job?
I think the conversation we had with Brad, he assumed he was gonna do it in the winter.
Yeah, but did
Yes.
he know at that time that it was gonna be a winter job?
Well, it only went out at the end of November.
Yeah, so you
And
did.
he said.
So, yeah.
He said?
Yeah.
Yeah, cause
Yeah.
he made certain that you have to build down.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to do it
Pay
the way.
taxes,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, and if he was able to start in December, he probably could have, because it was no snow and it was not really cold, but now that with all the snow and it's still not getting cold enough, it'll never freeze, so.
Yeah, liquidation damages, are gonna be hard on this one because we don't know where we're at.
But I mean, there's enough in I think it's gonna be fine. I don't think that we're gonna run over budget. I think, and sure, it'll depend on the weather, but even dewatering, I don't think he's gonna exceed his contingency even.
So there will be no bypass then?
No
No,
bypass.
it's not
This
gonna.
is-
No,
this is
but
summer
we
time.
might spend it dewatering, whatever.
Right.
It'll be what it'll be. We've gotta replace that, and that's that.
Yeah, hey,
It's like, that's a main artery.
Yeah.
And if we can't go any longer,
Yeah.
like, it's,
So what do we do about what we heard tonight with the
I say we go into closed session and discuss further.
you know,
What
what do that
council?
right now.
We could, because I have a motion to go into closed session. If you want,
We're here.
okay, yeah.
Right now, yeah.
So be it resolved that we move into closed session at 9:14 PM pursuant to section 239(2) of the municipal act to consider the following personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Could I have a mover? Mike and Kaz, second.
Just give Amanda a second to stop.
Be it resolved that the time is 10:02 PM and this meeting be adjourned until the next regular meeting or follow the chair. Mover, Edie, Kaz, all in favor? Use a barn burner, but I think we,